live, please let me know that it is working all right, that you can hear me okay. Any questions, comments, please request to speak. Ken, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? Any questions? Now is the time before everybody else joins. Oh, Ken says no sound. It's weird. Oh, Alan says okay. Is Ken messing with me again? Ken, are you messing with me? Yeah, you're messing with me. Ken, you can't mess with me at the beginning. The first few minutes are always very intense. There's a lot going on. Try to make sure everything's all right. Mess with me after a few minutes. All right. Tesla stock is up 1%. It was up quite a bit in the morning and then kind of trailed off a little bit. Oh no, we just lost macro analyst. What the hell just happened? Let's see. Is everything okay? Yeah, you can still hear me. Weird. I don't even see macro analyst here. That's so weird. One day, these bugs will be worked out and life will be great again. Until that day, this is what we got. Um, Hi, Steve. Ken says I have to refresh. Um, I All right. There's macro analyst. Okay. Let's get started again. 1.2%. PE ratio 40. Market cap $549 billion. We have about $20 billion of cash. So enterprise value is 549 minus $20 billion. So you're looking at $530 billion of enterprise value for Tesla. All EV stocks are up today. I'm not sure why. So let's do a NEO stock up 6.5%. Even Lucid is up 2-3% today. Let's look at Rivian. Rivian is up 1.6%. So today's Tesla move is in line with all the other EV. For some reason, EV stocks tend to trade about the same day-to-day movements, high correlation between them, even though Tesla is in a different league than the others, but go figure. BYD is up 2.5% today. In the last 5 days, up 4%. Let's look at the overall markets. All right, there's a question in live chat. So I think maybe we should do if any there's accounting questions. Accounting is an area where fraudsters and bears and short sellers seem to really reign kind of unchecked in terms of spreading nonsense. So, like this idea, for example, that you have to exclude accounts payable, like reduce accounts payable from cash, is ridiculous. You know, if you're going to take that approach, you also have to then add back finished goods inventory, for example. Or add back accounts receivable. So and there's a term for that. That's called working capital. And so you can either look at cash, or you can make adjustments to it to get to working capital figure. But you can't just look at the negatives and then say Your cash is lower if you just make those payments. Well, if you also receive this receivables, then we're back up. Like, so I guess maybe if you, as you find these kind of like FUD nonsense with accounting, you can just ask me. Another good account is CPA in New York. There's an account called CPA in New York. That also seems to know what they're talking about when it comes to accounting. So, all right. Dow Jones down 0.5%, Nasdaq down 0.3%, S&P 500 down 0.4%, Russell about flat. Russell 2000 is, so sometimes people think of Russell 2000 as including S&P 500. This is not correct. Russell is a different index than S&P. So there's Russell 2000. Those are the small cap stocks. There's Russell 1000. Those 1000 stocks sit above the 2000 stocks in terms of market cap. And then there's Russell 3000 that includes both of those. So Russell 2000 is a small cap market index. And there's a lot of kind of thinking around Russell 2000 potentially outperforming in the future because they're just so much cheaper than the larger cap stocks. Tom Lee talks about this. Tom Lee has been correct in many things. So, I pay attention to what else does he have to say. Although personally, I think there are reasons why large cap stocks are outperforming small cap stocks in a world where, it's easier to monopolize globally in a well-connected, highly globalized world. I think, there are inevitably going to be larger cap companies that's, have a permanent advantage over small cap companies. Like one example of it today is AI training requires billions of dollars of capital and investments into these training chips. A small cap company can't do that. So, I wouldn't just look at the historical trends and assume they're going to continue. All right, let's see what else is new. Nvidia down 3%. All these chip stocks seem to be coming off quite a bit. Nvidia, Supermicro down 3.5%. Supermicro is down about 20% from the top. So that obviously kills their momentum. So Nvidia is down 3.3% today. And from the top, we're looking at about 15% drop. So some people are calling that this is the end for these high flying chip stocks. And I tend to agree, honestly. I think the bubble has burst. So let's see. Oil down 1.3%, $85 per barrel. Yield curve is down 5-6 basis points across the curve today. Tomorrow, we're going to get the inflation data. And this is highly anticipated inflation data. So let's bring in Machine. Machine, what do you have to say? What do you want to talk about today? Do you want to talk some macro, inflation, big report tomorrow morning? Or do you want to talk about chip stocks, FST, AI, chicken?
Always willing to talk about chicken. But the first thing I wanted to say was you really need to correct yourself here. Reporting Tesla's PE ratio with GAAP accounting, which includes their one-time tax benefit, is kind of, I wouldn't say it's purposely deceitful, right? But it's really misleading. There's an additional about $2 in EPS attributed to that, which is not recurring. And if you looked at the non-GAAP earnings, it's like $2 less. And I believe after
What's
the next
GAP?
generally something
Oh, you
accounting
mean
principles.
GAAP?
GAAP.
I've
said GAAP.
never heard of someone refer to GAAP. That's a first
Fine.
in accounting history.
Non-GAAP. Well, I don't know the financial lingo, right? Abbreviations, how you say them. I admit to that. But don't get distracted here. Okay, the point is, and don't distract your listeners. The point is that the next quarter print is probably going to be around 50 cents in earnings. And then that means the trailing 12-month earnings is probably going to be around $2.4, meaning at, let's say, $180 share price, the PE ratio will be 75, nothing close to 40.
Well, with these PE ratios, I think it's best to kind of be consistent and look at both historical and forward-looking GAAP, non-GAAP, and really understand what they are, and then just try not to overanalyze it, because what you're doing is mixing historical results with a forecast. So it's just and I honestly I can argue both sides of excluding this gap adjustment to the tax benefit adjustment. So go ahead.
Fine. Ignore the forecast part of what's going to happen in Q1. If you still did trailing 12 months of non-GAAP, then your PE ratio is still something above 60. It's not 40, right? So anyways, all that matters is the future, right? And so which is a forecast, right? That's different. It's obviously a forecast and there's variables there. But,
Why am I hearing myself? Is there something in front of the speaker of your phone?
No, honestly, all of us wish we heard you less, probably.
Are you on speakerphone? Are you on hands off?
I'm just using my phone.
Hands
normal.
Free? Well, I'm hearing the echo. Do you have both your phone and your laptop open or something?
Nothing's coming from my laptop.
Let's get to the bottom of this. But don't mute yourself for a second, because this happened on multiple times now. See, there's like a little bit of static I'm hearing from myself.
Maybe you have both your accounts audio on or something.
No, I don't. And it's only with you.
No one else has been speaking yet.
Do you have AirPods on?
No.
How are you? Do you have headphones on?
No, you're right. It's my speaker. It's just a speaker from my phone. But that's
It
what
is
it always.
your speaker. I told you. So it's coming out of your speaker and then bouncing into your microphone. So something is in front of this facing the speaker.
Is this different now?
Well, let's see. Yeah, it's different. What did you change?
I don't know. It's not sitting on the table, like right in front of my laptop. So maybe there's some reflection off of.
Which is what I said.
I wasn't really listening to what you're saying.
Dude, I've been hosting these space. Oh my gosh. Back on.
All right. Is it better now? Yeah, it was close to my laptop.
Are you making love to your phone?
It's this new MacBook. Probably has poor noise shielding or something. This is a new one, so maybe that's why.
Okay. All right. Where were we? All right. Yeah. So the thing is, like, if that's why I really recommend people do a discounted cash flow analysis, which is, by the way, what I'm starting. So I highly recommend people to sign up for the value tier. I pinned at the top of our screens all the benefits that the value tier patrons get, which are DCF model by product and service that I'm starting to build. I'm basically updating my old model, but there's a lot of changes involved. I mean, it might actually be better to just build a new one. And then with each major assumption, I published the first article today with sexy vehicles, revenue, unit growth, profit margin assumptions, and kind of like the narrative behind those assumptions. And then daily digest of material news and posts, macro daily digest of material news and posts, key summaries of Seeking Alpha articles. So this is basically the one paragraph summary, which Seeking Alpha allows them to do, share one paragraph. and I kind of accumulated that into one article. And then there's direct message, community chat, and then you can suggest topics, requests, etc. It's a smaller group, obviously, because the higher tier. So it's more. I think it's going to be good discussion going forward in those. Anyway, Meta, welcome.
Hey, I didn't realize I was a speaker. Thanks for bringing me up.
Yeah. What do you have to say?
I think so I took a Waymo today, and it does reverse pretty well. I found a location where I'm going to take a Tesla and try it once they have the reverse working. Obviously, today would just go and get stuck, so it's not of use trying it. But I'm excited to have found some places. I've been scoping out more locations to test out and put FSD through its paces. I'll start recording it as well. This one I did with my hand. I'll get better at using actual gear like Omar has been. It's not for any purpose other than I just want to get a good sense of where FSD is and try and play devil's advocate to my own bullishness.
Machine, what do you make of these prototype vehicle operator job posts?
Not much, if it's true, which some people are saying that they've had these job postings for years.
Why would you say prototype vehicle?
They've had prototype vehicles for years.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. I mean, I did see a reply that says something like these were posted just 6 hours ago or whatever. So I don't know when they were posted.
They always are working on the next prototype, right? It's not like you just have a team work on a prototype and then you fire everybody, right? As soon as they're done working on something, they start working on the next thing.
Machine.
I do think, in general, though, it's definitely possible that they're further along with the next gen platform than they keep alluding to. I just simply because they've been working on the production line already for like a year. And there's been some other indications about Musk when he's been reviewing production line plans. Joe Tegmeyer saying what they've been installing. And I'm not saying I remember the exact timelines of how long it takes to install these production lines to beginning production. I don't remember for Cybertruck or Model Y. You can go back and review those details. It would be interesting. But I do think it was a bit surprising to hear that it wouldn't start production until end of 2025. Is that what we're thinking? It was stated by Musk. It does still seem to be pretty far off. So I wouldn't be surprised if it does happen a bit earlier.
Did he say end of 2025 or did he say 2025? And do you think he meant volume or do you think he meant first?
I thought it was end of 2025. And probably, I don't know. You're right. In terms of volume or first, I don't remember that part.
It doesn't matter. He said
Absolutely does matter.
Cybertruck volume. He said Cybertruck volume production in summer of 2023. So.
But pandemic. Cybertruck is one of the.
No, he said that at the beginning of. He said that in 2022. Like, there's no pandemic in 2023. That's not an excuse.
That's why I'm not talking about trusting what Musk says. I'm trying to trust the timelines of when things are built. And when did the Cybertruck line start being built? What was that timeline?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, we'll see. But management, and this is not just for Elon or Tesla. Management indications are just one indication among dozens of indications about these things. It should be that way. So, unless Meta, you think that we're going to actually get volume production by the end of 2025, like I'll bet you coffee that won't happen.
Define volume here. Are we talking 1,000 a week?
Yeah.
So you don't think Tesla's going to have any new vehicle at volume production? Because I don't want to pigeonhole myself into just Robotaxi.
Well, that's the bet. That's the topic. That's the bet. You can't just as soon as show interest in betting your coffee, all of a sudden expand the scope to like include like some, you know, Hot Wheels that may come out in the gift shop. you know?
Okay. The reason why I said that is because if they shift their focus to the semi-truck, that could deplete batteries for Robotaxi.
I'll throw in I'll throw in semi for you.
All right.
We have a bet.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, I know management says battery wasn't the limiting factor, but I can't see how it's not. It seems to be the most complicated part, except for bending steel, which, of course, once you figured it out, you figured it out.
Tesla, let's see, will produce 1,000 per week purpose-built Robotaxi or semi by the end of 2025.
Yes.
Yeah? Is that what you're saying? Okay. All right. Well, tell us what gives you confidence now that we have the bet.
The biggest risk factors for Cybertruck were the exoskeleton design, the fact that they pulled in the Ethernet loop, and they pulled in a lot of what I would say is like luxury features. For the Robotaxi, they don't need to make it super luxury. I don't think they need to change the camera setup or the hardware. So I suspect it's still going to be hardware 4. It's still going to be using all the same parts that they have. So the only thing that's novel about it is the unboxed manufacturing process and then reconstructing it. Now that is a big risk. They've got to like make sure structurally integrity holds with lots of pieces coming together rather than a single casting. But I don't see it as that big of a risk because most car manufacturers don't cast. So I think it is actually doable. And so based on that, I think the risks are lower compared to things like Cybertruck. And I agree with Machine. There's indications they've already started.
Okay. I created the bets and replied to the space with it. Would you please review the wording and accept the bet if you so wish? If not, we can revise. Machine, what indications do you see that they have already started? I meant to just put some words in your mouth, I think.
I thought Joe Tegmeyer had some videos where he was commenting on there was some other location that they were building a production line. Not that it was explicitly stated it was for the next gen vehicle, but it was kind of implied. I could be wrong. I haven't been following that closely, but that's what I recollect.
And when was that video? Was that recent, or was this a few months ago?
This is a few months ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
You remember it, but you're asking me as if you didn't know about it?
Well, Meta kind of mentioned that it sounded like he said something from more recent periods. I mean, do you see any other indications? Because he also said multiple indications. Is that the only one you got?
That's the only indication I have from an actual physically building something. The other indication was simply Musk saying he's been how much he's been reviewing the production line plans. But I guess that's definitely more of a flimsy point and observation.
Greg says in the replies, Joe Tegmeyer said the production equipment is laying on the ground at Giga Texas. So, Meta, what do you mean by they're building at a different location?
I didn't say that. Joe Machine said that.
Somebody else said, I got you, Joe. Okay. All right. We have another speaker coming up. Let's see. Okay, that doesn't work. All right. So, Machine. You agree with laying on the ground? I mean, I remember that drone flight. It's kind of like a different part of the Texas. They were accumulating that equipment, right? Are you seeing indications that equipment is brought into the building?
No, I haven't been paying enough attention to know. That's what I rely on the rest of this
Yeah.
forum for. Someone should be reading these videos and telling us how it compares to the Cybertruck build out, like timeline wise. Like I'm spending my time here as a speaker.
Well, here's the thing.
Someone
The
else needs to
problem
do the
is,
work.
first of all, can you please move your phone so that we don't get a bounce off, like an echo? Okay. No, another trick is to put like a paper towel under it so it kind of absorbs those vibrations. But if it's directly on a table, against the wall, or something is bouncing off from the speaker into the microphone, it's really not that difficult to solve these problems. These are easy problems to solve. There's no super
It's
exponential IQ needed to solve these problems.
it's not.
And yet you can't do it. It's so fucking weird. See, I'm not supposed to drop F-bombs because then we get flagged.
Right.
Dude, and you're also eating. This is
I'm not
ridiculous. This is a
eating.
mess.
It's a lie.
Why don't you just put yourself on mute for a second? Okay, Meta, can you and I talk for a little bit?
Yes, I just want to say your sound quality is really crisp today, Iman. It's like those new AirPods that you have are working really well.
Yeah, it's a combination of three things: new AirPods, good Wi-Fi, and I'm in an isolated space right now.
Yeah, unlike Machine.
Anyway,
the other thing I was going to say is just reasoning from first principles. You hire a team to do prototyping and you get them to the point where the Cybertruck is now handed off to the team that's, taking it from mid-level to the final line. You don't take that team and do nothing with them. That's partly why I think they go from one refresh to the next. Now, it could be that Juniper is taking the attention of that team and that they're not working on the next Robotaxi line. It's certainly possible, but then the 8.8 announcement seems misplaced.
what do you mean misplaced?
At the announcement, I would assume they have a prototype vehicle. If they're making a prototype vehicle for the Robotaxi presentation, I think it's less interesting to show the vehicle and it's more interesting to show the production line.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, maybe we'll get a production line. Do you think it's going to happen on 8.8?
I suspect they show progress on 8.8, but I don't think they'll say it's all done.
You don't think this is going to be an invite event, like in person?
Oh, no, it'll be an in-person event, I'm sure.
And you think it's going to be 8.8?
I think that's what they're targeting. It'd be weird if it wasn't, because that's like the Chinese good fortune thing. If it's not on 8.8, then suddenly they lose the meme.
Okay, but you didn't answer my question.
I think it's going to be on 8.8. I think how much progress they can show will get chopped before the date gets moved.
Such bullshit. I don't think so. That's another cost of that. You
Wait,
want
so you think the presentation will not happen on 8.8?
confidence? I mean, there's a chance,
Are you taking a
obviously, but
strike?
when was the last
Are you
time?
taking a strike or are you
When
taking a
was
bet?
I didn't say anything. And you made the claim. I didn't make the claim.
I'm pretty sure you laughed at the claim.
You're really stretching. Man, you've been doing some stretches.
All I'm saying is you take so many swings and then you never call them a strike.
I didn't take a swing. Hold on a second. When was the last time Tesla put out a date and it actually held on to that date?
Battery day, AI day.
I don't think so. We'll check the tape on that. Anyway, let's move forward.
Cybertruck delivery date. Once they announce the date, it's different.
Okay, let's kind of talk about this while I have you guys on here. Let's talk about this thread from you know what thread I'm talking about. Oh, by the way, what do you think about before that? What do you think about this less than $25,000 used Tesla Model Y that we talked yesterday in last night's space? Towards the end of last night's space, we learned that used Model Ys, there's some used Model Ys out there that are going for less than $25,000, which means they qualify for a $4,000 credit.
Where?
Machine,
what do you think about that?
I don't know how you think. I don't think it's a good thing. It's not a good thing for reset their prices. It's just again showing there's still weakness. So, congrats.
I mean, if we get a volume production of that, like volume, like if that happens to thousands, tens of thousands of Model Ys as Cybertruck production ramps, and people turn in their Model Ys, what does that mean for Toyota's RAV4 demand? Right? Model Y is a vehicle that qualifies for premium black Uber. Like Uber drivers really like the Model Y over the Model 3. So if they can get a used Model Y for less than $25,000, I think that's going to be a game changer for these ride-sharing networks. Anyway,
Are these cars with like over 100,000 miles or with salvage titles? Like, I don't see any
not
myself.
not salvage title. Okay, so again, I recommend people go and listen to the second half of yesterday's space for this discussion. Okay, the Cheap Tesla's account made it clear that these are no repairs, no accidents, just high mileage. Okay, more than 100,000, more than like about 150,000 miles on them. But that's not a bad, like that's not the end of the world if you're getting this vehicle for low 20,000s, only 2-3 year old Model Ys. Because before that we had, oh man, I forget his name again. Somebody who worked at somebody who worked with Sandy Munro and also worked before at Tesla and now works at CATL. What's his name?
Antonio.
Antonio, yeah. So Antonio came in and said the batteries in Teslas today and in the last few years, the ones that are produced in the last few years, could last close to 1,000,000 miles if used properly. He said, heat is the enemy. So don't overcharge it. Don't supercharge it all the time. Don't overcharge it beyond 80%. If used properly, they should last. And by last, I mean hold on to like 70-80% of their range or close to 1,000,000 miles. So why does it matter if this Model Y has 100 to 150,000 miles on it if you're getting it for a low $20,000? Meta?
After 130,000 miles, most ride-sharing platforms won't allow you on. I don't know if Uber would allow you on. It's not because the cars can't handle it. It's because the platforms are still built and their policies are still built based on ICE vehicles.
Oh, I see. And Cheap Teslas, he says he's in the audience. He says, I'm here and happy to jump on, working on another Model Y today. 95,000 miles and FSD would be under $25,000. That is crazy value. Crazy value. Okay. So I'm going to bring him up here. We're going to switch topics, but he's welcome to request to speak, and people can keep in touch with him. I think there's tremendous value in these. There's some. I mean, he mentioned yesterday because we talked about this here for many weeks and months. Legacy automakers took advantage of unknowing customers. Selling Teslas in 2022 at long range prices, even though they were standard range Teslas. And there are legacy automakers, dealerships out there that don't know what they have with FSD and some of these newer Model Ys. So, yeah, that's crazy. That's insane value. Okay. I want to ask you guys about machine dropped off, but we have Omar and Meta who are better anyway than machine. So let me ask you about this thread. So I pinned the thread at the top. Okay. I'm sure you've seen this before from Threaded One. 500,000 views on it. Curious what you guys think. Tesla's moat in self-driving. The Tesla driving space has been a battleground of ideas: LiDAR versus cameras, rule-based versus end-to-end. A lot of dead bodies with new entrants keep coming. As FSD pivots to end-to-end, there are a lot of discussions around its moat. Why can't other OEMs get there? What about NVIDIA or Mobileye? Okay, I'm going to show this on YouTube live screen as well. Meta, what are your initial thoughts on this?
The big issue with this graph is it's kind of assuming the end-to-end approach is the be-all
Exactly.
end-all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so placing Waymo, frankly, this far behind Tesla, near NVIDIA and Cruise, it just tells you that there's something wrong
Exactly.
with the graph. They're the ones. They're
That's
the
that
only ones
was
without a
my
human.
that was my literally first reaction. I'm like, is Waymo really closer to rule-based versus end-to-end?
They don't use rules. We actually know they wrote
Yeah.
the NGale paper in 2020, so they've been using transformers for their planner for 4 years. At least,
Yeah,
okay, they wrote a
and then
paper.
the other thing is like, how do you know?
They're making assumptions here.
Yeah, and this is a bad assumption.
It's a very bad assumption, given that they've written a paper on how to do it. You don't do that if you're not going to do it. And then they've talked at
I know.
CDPR multiple times about it.
I know. So as soon as I saw that, I didn't even read the rest of it. But is there anything in the rest of it? Like, I keep getting tagged on this thing. Is there anything
But
we need to talk about on this tweet?
it's hard to to take the rest of it seriously because they have this camera on the top versus maps and LiDAR as if these are the only two approaches. Like you can use camera plus maps and camera plus maps plus LiDAR, right? So I think the thing people need to keep remembering is Waymo's approach allowed them to start with multiple models running on the same cars. They could use souped up hardware that would never go for production, but that allows you to expedite your data collection and real world testing. Tesla's approach allowed them to build way more cars and get them out there. And they're two totally different, equally valid, in my opinion, approaches. The question is just which one makes more business sense at the end of the day. And Tesla's approach makes more business sense. Whereas an engineering side, okay, maybe Waymo's was better because it got to the end goal.
Yeah. Omar, what do you think?
So I'm driving right now in the Cybertruck. I may not have the best connection, but I think there's just a lot to be said for actually doing it. And Tesla's doing it at a scale that nobody else is. I love using Waymo, but when I have to go to Berkeley, when I have to go to Sausalito, I can't take a Waymo. So it's very limited. It's very expensive. Tesla's driving all across the country, and I think practice makes perfect. That's how I would sum up their moat in one sentence. Practice makes perfect.
All right.
I don't
great.
think that makes it a moat, though.
Yeah, that's fine. We're going to let me just skim through this real quick before we kind of dump it. Yeah, I really, it's a little frustrating that a lot of these wrong statements, conclusions just get so much attention. Anyway. Data stands at the heart of the discussion. While the importance of data volume and quality is widely recognized, nuances such as the type of data and accessibility are often overlooked or undervalued. The right type of data is crucial. Tesla has 9 high-resolution cameras per car, while most existing fleets on the road have 1 to 2 different quality. Although NVIDIA sells 1 million units of Orin chips annually and Mobileye's IQ chips have 70% penetration, most of the installed vehicles don't produce the right kind of data for training. Do you agree with that, Meta?
No.
Just yes or no? Okay, tell me why.
Most installed vehicles produce the right vehicle data for training because that is the data that those cars are trained on.
Okay.
It's like saying a blind person doesn't have eyes, therefore they can't navigate the world. Well, they learned how to navigate the world in a way that somebody who has eyes when they close their eyes can't. So it's two different things.
Okay. For those of you who just joined, if you have an ICE vehicle, you can get a Model Y for less than $25,000, qualify for the $4,000 credit, and the account that will facilitate that transaction cheap Teslas is on the board. He was very kind with his time yesterday, answered dozens of questions about the used car market. He's going to share with us any data changes in the trends that he's seeing going forward. He's going to be more active, he said. We tried to get him from Facebook to X to be more active on X. And I think in the last 48 hours, he's probably spent more time on X than Facebook. Right, Josh?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right. Going on with this post. Access to data is equally critical. The presence of cameras doesn't guarantee usable data, with much of it not being saved or simply disconnected. Even when data is stored, third parties like NVIDIA and Mobileye face hurdles using it in real time. And of course, volume and quality of data matters. Way more rumored to be also pivoted. We talked about this before. It doesn't matter that much. Potential competitors face 3, Omar. Omar, you're on mute. All right. Potential competitors face 3 hurdles. Producing the right type of, maybe Meta, I can ask you this way. So she says 3 hurdles: right type of data, accessing the data, and achieving sufficient volume and quality. How would you rank these 3?
Right type of data is probably the highest. Second most is volume. And third is, what was the third one? Access?
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means.
No. The access is about the presence of cameras doesn't guarantee usable data, with much of it not being saved or simply disconnected. Even when data is stored, third parties like NVIDIA and Mobileye face hurdles using it in real time. I don't think does she maybe not understand
No.
training versus inference?
No, this is a valid argument. So for NVIDIA and
Okay.
Mobileye, they don't have over-the-air connections necessarily where those vehicles are sending up data. But yeah, I don't think she's understanding that, like, how triggers would work. There's nothing preventing NVIDIA and Mobileye from doing the same thing Tesla's doing if they have on-device storage, storing it, and then reconnecting on Wi-Fi. So there's a bit of misunderstanding of how things work here.
Right. I mean, she's welcome to come up and have a discussion with everybody involved, and I think this space is best when we have experts on the board debating, discussing, and we have thousands of people benefiting, even if it's just a little bit. Taking something from each space going forward, and we grow as a group is best. I tagged her on it, but I don't think she joined. So BYD stands out as a potential. Okay, Meta, what do you think about this? So there's a lot of concerns around BYD right now. BYD has a sub $10,000 battery electric vehicle that, by John McElroy and others, all the lines, John McElroy and others, are deemed to be sufficient. Okay. It's not going to knock off your socks, but it gets the job done in terms of transitioning to EVs. I think the charge speed is very low, but if you're charging primarily overnight at home anyway, it may not matter that much. The BYD Seagull has 30 or 39 kilowatt hour battery and goes about 190 or 230 EPA range.
Yep.
The interior material quality appears to be okay. 2 screens in front of the driver, like a Model S, Model X, and the middle screen rotates vertical to landscape mode. And obviously there's no glass roof or anything like that. It's tiny. It's smaller than a GM Bolt. Okay, slightly smaller than a GM Bolt. And if you've ever been a GM Bolt, it's tiny. And but one criticism that these Chinese vehicles get often is that they would never be able to meet the US safety standards. And I don't know if that's true necessarily, because one thing that people point to is there's no airbags in those things. Well, this one has 6 airbags. Okay. There is no frunk, and the trunk is tiny. What else? The acceleration is similar to like a base model Honda Civic. Okay, so it's literally designed to be just sufficient, just enough for majority of the people who can only afford a 10,000 or lower price vehicle. And if you look at the used car market in the US, twice as large as the new car market, primarily because of the price points. And majority of used car sales is under $10,000. So that's what they're targeting here. And then this Fred Adouan says, BYD stands out as a potential well-positioned player when it comes to this autonomous stuff, albeit without a clear focus on autonomous driving so far. NVIDIA versus Tesla in some way mirrors that of Qualcomm and Apple, where NVIDIA leads in chip design but lacks Tesla's level of integration and ecosystem control. Players like Li Auto, Xpeng, and NIO all use NVIDIA's chips, yet they are developing their self-driving algorithms in-house. What do you think, Meta?
First, only because you've asked this in the past, enunciation of the word albeit is albeit. Regarding the FSD in-house, I'm
Wait,
sure
what did I say? Wait, what did I say?
You said albeit or something along those lines.
What am I supposed to say?
Albeit.
Albeit.
Yeah, just only because you've asked in the past. I don't.
Yeah, of course.
Just in case somebody's listening for the first time, I'm like, wow, that guy's an asshole.
No, if I mispronounce, please correct me immediately. You're not the only one. People leave replies and stuff with pronunciations. I love it.
Machine was typing one up right now, I'm sure. But the full self-driving in-house, sure, we can go into that. I'm sure BYD could compete. They could partner with others. I agree with what Elon has said in the past. I don't think the software is going to be a moat for very long, frankly. I know that people will disagree with that. I think close proximities will arrive, especially lane keeping and things like that will get done. As far as the low-end car market, it's a very different market. A 30 kilowatt hour battery versus what's like 75 in the Model 3s is a very different thing. That's like $6-7 grand maybe in difference right there. So I think, like, when you include margins and everything, I think the mileage requirements and the quality of interior requirements, if they pan out that's actually what more of the market wants, and that starts eating into Model 3 market share, Tesla could easily create another version of the car there. And if you recall, even though there's the Robotaxi discussion and there's the $25,000 car discussion, there's been a while since they opened the design studio in China, and they've been working on a car, and we haven't really heard much about it. And that could be also coming up on the 8.8 discussion.
Okay. Machine, what do you think?
About which specific question?
Whichever you want to respond to first. You have a lot of discretion in this space.
I mean, I saw this. I read through their posts, and I don't really think there's anything new there. I don't know. Like, this is someone's observation from the outside. I mean, no one else has the data collecting abilities of Tesla right now. There's no one else who has it in terms of scale. Now, that doesn't mean one of these car manufacturers, particularly, yes, it makes sense, BYD, couldn't integrate a system to get all their sensors in coherence and then collecting all that data and then uploading it to the cloud. Like, it's possible, but they're not doing it now. I mean, maybe some of the car manufacturers in China, I don't know, like Xpeng, Li Auto or something, right? They have some autonomous systems. They're probably doing it at a smaller scale. They don't have as many vehicles. In the US or Europe, there's not really a competitor right now. A lot of them use Mobileye, and they don't have fully censored systems. There's a lot of Mobileye vehicles with like one facing forward camera or a few. Probably not enough data there to collect to do a fully supervised drive. So, like, that all makes sense. I agree with Meta that the software is not really going to be a moat for long, just like Tesla's able to pivot and use new software techniques that other people create it goes vice versa too. Data is the main advantage for now, and we'll see how long that is a lead. But they can't squander the lead either, right? They have to build something rapidly to take advantage of that lead, because eventually that will also go away. And finally, I do agree, Meta is an asshole. I met him.
What do you think about BYD Seagull?
I don't know. Is that just their cheaper Model 3 copy?
It's smaller than a Model 3, slightly smaller than a Chevy Bolt, but it's $9,700.
Well, I mean, like, that's why I commented earlier this week or last week. Like, I'm not saying that I don't know what their margins are going to be on this, but the competition in China is legitimate for Tesla, whether it's subsidized by their government or not. I just don't think Tesla's going to be getting high margins again when they're competing directly against Chinese vehicles, whether it's in China or in other export markets from the Shanghai factory, from the hardware. It doesn't seem like, I don't think that's coming back from the Chinese factory. Europe and the US, maybe that's different, but I just don't see it.
Am I incorrect? But I might be incorrect, but as I understand it, there is a brand perception when you buy a Tesla that is a better brand. And so for that reason, I think there will still continue to be a market for Tesla in China. This is not they don't have to take the 100% of the market to win.
For the record, I do believe Tesla does have a good brand in China. Not that I've been paying enough attention if that's changed recently. I do believe that will give them some margin benefit. I just don't think it'll be as great as it had used to be.
I think there's some risk to BYD going really, really cheap, tarnishing their upper end vehicles as well. Let's see how it plays out, because while there are a lot more people that will buy at the lower ends, if it could just be less margins per battery they sell.
Okay. Josh, cheap Teslas. I just want to make it clear to everybody, I'm not getting any sort of commission from Josh for cheap Teslas. There's no fees paid, no kickbacks. And the only reason why I like the account is because these are some insane deals that I think listeners can benefit from. And I hope that Josh sticks to his commitment that he's going to make just a reasonable amount of profit from these deals, and just focus on turning them over fast. Right, Josh?
Yeah, just sold a car today. Listed it about an hour ago. Sold it. Quick one. Model S.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. All right. Let's see. Yeah, it's kind of wild that you guys aren't. I mean, I don't know. I think Omar is driving. Maybe he's headed home. Maybe he'll chime in later on. But I was really shocked about the BYD Seagull news. But what am I missing here? Why aren't you guys as concerned as Machine?
Well, I mean, you're asking the wrong person, because I am concerned. That's why I have puts right now. I'm not concerned long term, but my long term is probably projected to be lower net income than you think or others think. I still forecast out, say in 2025, end of 2025, getting between $4 and $5 annualized in EPS. But I don't see gross margins and operating margin going back to their highs that's not necessarily like a bad thing. You can still scale production up 5 million vehicles, and with the next gen vehicle, and not even consider, this is not considering Robotaxi, right? I mean, it's considering a bit of FSD subscriptions. So even with suppressed margins, like you can still have a successful company. I mean, Toyota does not have super high margins, and they're still a successful company with a reasonable market cap. And if you assume Tesla can be the new Toyota, but also have some energy, have some FSD, some additional software revenue, then you're going to have a company that's pretty highly valuable. Just not necessarily multiple trillions of dollars. It might be like $800 billion.
Okay. For those of you requesting to speak, I send you a message. I want to clear the question ahead of time. Sometimes we have a very strong speaker board right now, so I want to focus the discussion to the existing folks on the board. Yoda, what do you think?
Oh, sorry, I just logged on, so I'll hit pass on this.
Okay, that's all right. So you don't have any comments on BYD Seagull being less than $10,000? Like, is that not something you kind of focus on, or are you just prepared to answer the question?
I think, yeah, that to me that's like a different segment altogether. And the one that actually I'm keeping an eye on right now is Xiaomi's SU7. There's a video that they put out on a drone flyover of their plant, and it's almost identical to the flyover that we saw from Berlin. So that's definitely worth checking out.
Thank you. I will check that out. Meta, we have a question for you. What do you think about thesis of Tesla launching an FSD supervised rideshare? Release the rideshare app ASAP, allow only Teslas using FSD while supervised in the short term. Then when fully autonomous customers and infrastructure is there, transition to driverless. Meta, then machine. Machine.
I have to drop after this for a meeting, but I think it's possible because they need to start their own app anyways and get some inertia going, build some inertia. So I could see it. I don't know if you need to force the rides to be supervised FSD. You could just have people driving the car. I'm not an expert on this in terms of what I think is best. But I do see just some problem with if FSD is not moving quickly and people get annoyed who are sitting behind the driver's wheel. So for Uber, Uber taxi rides so I'm not sure. I think I'm open to it.
Okay. What do you before you jump off? What do you think about? Did you leave already? Yeah, you left already. Batman disappears. Omar, what do you think about this coffee bet at the top? Tesla will ramp to 1,000 per week purpose-built robotaxi or semi in 2025.
$1,000 per week in 2025. Well, if they produce 100 in 2025, I'll be happy, frankly. They're telling suppliers to expect a June 2025 start of production. Knowing how things can slip, that might easily slip into the back half of 2025 or into 2026. As we've discussed, the unbox process is very new. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. There's a lot of complications. So I think that's their target. But given how small changes in the start date can move production a lot one way or the other, I'll just be happy if we see even one of them come off the line, frankly.
Yoda, what do you think?
Yeah, I think learning from the Cybertruck is that we don't want to be too optimistic from the time of announcement to unveiling to tooling, pre-production, and then production. I think there's a lot of variables with the Cybertruck. There was maybe the 48 volt architecture. With this one, I think there's the machine that builds the machine. That's net new as well. You know, this production line will not look like the Model 3 and Y production line. So I think there's some variables there. The actual vehicle itself is likely you know, vastly simplified, and the unboxing process, you know, theoretically would simplify those dependencies. But yeah, I think this one it's about the line that that is net new that could throw things off. The good news is that I think there is a ramp up on the regulatory side that is also happening. So, you know, it's sort of the left foot and the right foot both could get delayed. Ultimately, I think regardless of the ramp up volume at the end of 2025, I would be more interested to see how FSD has progressed at that point. So even if they made one vehicle, but that vehicle capability on FSD is you know, reach a certain point that it's truly Robotaxi capable, that to me is actually better to know than actually on the production side of the hardware.
That's a great response. Omar.
So, you know, I've heard from suppliers that they're targeting for the next gen platform a June 2025 start of production. And for July 2026, they want to be at 10,000 units a week out of Austin. So I think this isn't a Cybertruck situation. The Cybertruck went very quickly from sketch to prototype. And it was kind of like, okay, just get a prototype. And there was a lot of work left to actually make it a real vehicle. And then you had the pandemic, you had the chip shortage, you had a decision to push back new vehicles to focus on keeping the 3 and Y running. So that was a very different situation. You look at the Model Y, and it actually came out 1 year after unveil. So obviously that's just an extension of the Model 3. But they're at the point where they're ordering suspension components and electronic components, steering components from suppliers. So I think they may be a little further along on this next gen platform than a lot of people are giving them credit for.
Yoda, what do you think about what Omar just said?
Yeah, I just think with every new vehicle, they're actually trying to not just learn from the past, but they have the audacity to really rethink everything from first principles. And so, yeah, well, I appreciate those data points from the suppliers and hope that those dates do pan out. You know, they're also not a company that copies and pastes from one vehicle to another, particularly with how transformative this one is. This is obviously not a Model Y to a Model 3 scenario here, but yeah, appreciate those data points from suppliers. I think the jazz music selector will be something that they want to bake in there as well. There seems to be a lot of appetite for that type of genre.
No hands mode. Omar, go ahead.
So the process is definitely designed to make it quicker to bring new vehicles to market. It's designed to be simpler. It's designed to require less factory floor space. So less factory floor space to set up means, it's just a simpler process overall. So it's designed to be simpler. It's designed to be faster. It's designed to be a quicker time to market. But on the other hand, it's a new process. It's unproven. There may be challenges that we don't foresee. There's more uncertainty about how it really works in the real world. But they seem to be pretty sure of it. And ultimately, the results could not pan out. Some people have said, well, we did an analysis and we think this is only going to cut 30% of the cost out, not 50% of the cost out. So there are risks associated with it. There could be delays. At the same time, this is them going back to the drawing board and trying to come up with something revolutionary for their next set of mass-produced vehicles. So what those innovations really look like and how they change what we've seen from prior production ramps, I think is a little bit unpredictable at this point, but could go either way.
Any questions for Omar or Yoda, please request to speak. If you're in live chat, I'm going to monitor the chat as well to see if there are any questions. Yoda, did you have something to say, or should we move on to the next
one? We can move on, but definitely there's two less seats to put in there, which is going to speed things up.
So my question to you, Yoda, is, and Omar after that, is how do you guys see the sexy vehicles going forward? Do you think that Tesla will, Elon has talked about SX being not a priority. They're kind of doing it for sentimental reasons. Do you think 3 and Y will also move into that category? And that the future is just going to be about Cybertruck and the next-gen vehicle platform and Robotaxis and Optimus? Or do you see the 3 and Y production rate and maybe even SX production rate increasing in the future with new production lines?
I think the Model 3 and Y are going to continue to be the bread and butter of the company for quite a few more years. We've got a well-received update to the Model 3. We're going to see an update to the Model Y. We've got the Cybertruck. I think those products definitely still have some growth ahead of them, especially with FSD. And I think the segment of Tesla's lineup that's really focused on just being fun to drive, there's going to be continue to be a market for things like the Model 3 Ludicrous and the Model S Plaid and the Cyber Beast for quite some time. And I think a driverless Robotaxi kind of serves a very different market.
Yeah, agreed. I think the Robotaxi is going to displace the kind of public transportation potentially. That might be the surprise, because the cost of that Robotaxi ride is no longer the cost of an Uber ride. It's going to approach public transportation like bus fares and MRTs in Asian countries. And so that's really the market to look at displacing. The car ownership market, I think, there's there's definitely still gonna uphold, particularly as the Model 3 and Y costs are actually gonna decline year over year. Up to a point, but I think they'll decline. And in particular, the change that we'll see with those is that your car might become an asset. So for some owners of the Model Y and 3, they may find that their car can be earning money for them while it's parked while they're at work, for example.
Yeah, so if you just kind of do the math on this, we were at about 1.8 million-ish 3 and Ys last year. So how long is it going to take the next gen platform to start exceeding the 3 and Y platform? If we have some data from suppliers that shows they've been asked to provide 520,000 units a year by mid 2026, and so you assume, okay, let's say we grow to 2 to 2.5 million units for the 3 and Y over time. Then you're at 520,000 units in mid 2026. Maybe you can cross 1 million units in 2027. So we're really looking at, I think, 2027, 2028 before the next gen platform actually exceeds the 3 and Y platform. And you would probably have to see the Mexico factory up and running, as well as the next gen line in Berlin up and running, and maybe even the India Gigafactory or another Asian location up and running before you actually had millions of units of next gen vehicles that are replacing, exceeding the current 3 and Y production.
All right. We have a question from live chat. Will the Robotaxi service be activated for the sexy fleet prior to the next gen vehicle? If yes, what is the anticipated time frame? Yoda, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think I definitely see a path where the current Uber drivers who owns a Tesla may be incentivized by Tesla to migrate from using the Uber app to the Tesla ride-hailing app. And this would be a transitional phase where the cars, the Model S, X, E, Y, or 3 and Y are under the capability of supervised FSD, so that you still need a driver to somewhat supervise the experience. Now, just as an aside, as that Uber driver, you might start to be obviously worried about the prospect of you as an Uber driver, but that point aside. And so while that's happening in select markets and select sort of geographies, there could be fully autonomous robotaxis which are deployed very strategically and precisely by Tesla to collect data to test out the capabilities. And then so you basically have this transitional phase where there are human drivers supervising Tesla robotaxis, and then there's pure play robotaxis.
Omar, would you like to add to that?
No, I think assuming that they achieve driverless level reliability before the start of production of the next gen platform, then absolutely they would enable it on existing vehicles, no doubt about it. The question mark is just, where do those two fall in relation to each other?
Right.
Yeah, I think having supervised rideshare service could be a good idea.
Interesting. We have another question for you, Omar. if FSD V12, can you please talk a little bit more about, we talked about this MJ earlier, but and yesterday, but V12 needing human labeling, or if the neurons are self-labeling for training learning. There's some human labelers involved still in the process, but my understanding is that it's more for curating the data that's being fed into the training process, rather than specifically labeling this is a car, this is a fire hydrant, etc. So the amount of human labor involved in the training process is much less than in previous versions of FSD. Omar, is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. Essentially, we've changed the question that we're asking it to predict. And by changing the question, that's changed the kind of labeling needed. Rather than saying, okay, label all the stop signs, so draw a box around all the stop signs. And okay, now you need to predict where the stop signs are. We don't ask it to predict the stop sign. We just say, predict what the steering wheel and pedal output is based on everything you're seeing. And I can actually give you some labeled drives which have the steering wheel and pedal output because we've got millions of people driving our cars. So the label is you driving the car. And the amount of annotation that has to be done by, say, someone in Buffalo is minimal. It's really now a lot more curation rather than annotating the whole scene. The need for that has been kind of eliminated because you're just asking it to predict the planning and control output directly rather than trying to build a perception system and then do planning and control in C++ on top of that.
Great. Clay, what's your question?
Yeah, so just trying to think about how to think about the sexy lineup versus the Robotaxi. So would you guys think of the 3 and the Y being vehicles that you choose to own yourself, that maybe you want to own to take you places, but you can also submit into the Robotaxi fleet to get revenue? But then, you know, if you're really trying to maximize your margins on the Robotaxi, you would just buy that optimized car for that use. Or I'm just curious how you guys think about the sexy fleet in light of the Robotaxi.
I think of it as they're physically larger vehicles. They're bigger than the 3 and the Y. So if you want to, you know, take your family on a road trip, you're still going to want a Model Y. Unless you are on a budget or maybe live in a tight city or something, you might choose the $25,000 compact crossover. But these vehicles are going to be actually smaller in size than the 3 and Y. Because they're smaller, they'll need less battery to go the same range. They'll charge faster, etc. So I think people will continue to buy the 3 and Y if they want a larger vehicle. And the 3 and Y are going to continue to evolve as well. I expect that as it becomes possible to remove the steering wheel, it won't just be the dedicated Robotaxi. You'll be able to get versions of the 3 and the Y and the Cybertruck that don't have steering wheels and pedals as well, and that steer by wire and all that stuff. I think it's going to move across the lineup. So these products, I think, are going to continue to evolve with the times as well.
Yeah, and I think the density of where the driver is located, or the customer is located, matters. So if you're out in the burbs, it may take, you know, up to 10, 15 minutes, even longer, for that Robotaxi to come to you. And so in those cases, the benefits of owning your own vehicle, particularly if you have a family that requires more than 2 seats. There may be a bench seat in the back. I don't know when that thing folds down, but assuming it has 2 primary seats and you have a family, you may still want to go with the 3 and the Y. But I think, yeah, density is one of those factors as well.
Greg?
Yeah, so as far as the SXY potential, the way I look at Tesla, this is, we only know phase one. Phase one is where we use Panasonic batteries, LG batteries, and CATL batteries. When this 4680 line gets ramped past the production of the Cybertruck, and they are then able to add those batteries back into the 3 and Y lineup, they're going to have an extra, in my opinion, $5,000 to play with. 3,000 from the manufacturing credit and 2,000, in my opinion, cost savings. So if they were to lower the price of that lineup by 5,000, that could completely change the demand outlook.
Yeah, I mean, that's years away, right? Ramping 4680s beyond Cybertruck, Semi, and maybe other products is years away. And by then, who knows if IRA will be around? That's number one. So that's it. I think that's a good kind of thing to focus on a little bit. I wonder if you guys think Model 3 and Y will ever use the 4680. Omar, what do you think?
It's possible. Tesla's going to continue to take a diverse cell supplier approach. So their volume's low right now. It's going to be a small percentage of the mix. To the extent that they can make batteries and they're competitive, they'll use them. But I think they're going to continue buying from pretty much every major battery supplier in the world for the foreseeable future.
Well, let's not forget they built Giga Texas with the thought of doing the structural Y battery packs. So they did start making the 4680s, but had to pull back when they retooled the line. So, according to Joe Tegmeyer, they now have 1.5 production lines up and running. Okay, 3 and 4 are supposed to be in process or complete by the third quarter. And in the third quarter on, as per Drew Baglino, they have 4 more lines are going to try to start ramping by the end of the year. So it is possible that by the middle of next year, they're at one of their run rates that they projected of on battery day. Right now, they're at 6 gigawatts. But for argument's
Okay,
sake,
Greg, let me ask you a question. When do you think Model 3 and Y will have, let's say, majority of their batteries being 4680s? Model 3 Y produced anywhere around the world, having majority of their batteries 4680s. When do you think that's going to happen?
majority, I'm not sure, but I would guess by the first quarter of next year, they will reintroduce the Model Y all-wheel drive with the structural battery pack, and that'll be the first one, and then go from there.
Yoda, what do you think about that? That Tesla will reintroduce the 4680 structural pack for the Model Y line at Giga Texas by the end of in a year, basically.
I don't think so. I think they'll stick with where they can source the most right now because it's such a high volume vehicle, and that could be the LFPs.
Yeah. Greg, I'll bet you coffee on that prediction that you just made. Are you down for that?
Model Y all-wheel drive first half of next year. I'll take that. Yes.
No, you said end of first quarter.
Okay. Yeah. End of first quarter, 2025. Yes. Because where else are those batteries going to go? They've already caught up to the Cybertruck production now, so they should be well ahead by the end of the year. We're all hoping. Okay. So the first place I think those batteries go are the all-wheel drive.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give you any Model Y. Doesn't have to be all-wheel drive. Any Model Y. Oh, you know what? I'll give you any other sexy vehicles. How about that?
Deal.
Okay. While I tap this up, Max Johnson, go ahead.
Hey guys, just wondering if you think that whether or not there's going to be an opportunity for the Robotaxi to be actually classified as a ride share car legally. I don't know if anybody's talked about this, but it blurs the lines when you just have the control in your hand on your phone where you want to go. Maybe you stop at the store and you go on to your next thing. If you're running errands, and you want to have the car nearby in a small town, maybe it makes sense to keep it. But I was wondering, like, if you discussed that, if it's actually not going to be a taxi, but a more like a zip car.
Omar, what do you think?
I don't really think it's going to be like a zip car. I think it's going to be an autonomous vehicle. But so, one thing I wanted to suggest is people were talking about how the Robotaxi fits in with the other vehicles. And there's been kind of this misperception that, oh, okay, none of the vehicles are going to be Robotaxi now because this thing is Robotaxi. But here's kind of how I imagine this working. So you have your average Tesla user. They can pay on demand and call a ride with no upfront commitment, or they can subscribe, pay, let's say, $500 a month or something, and then get a discounted per mile rate. So, you have our average Joe user. He goes and he takes a car to work. It could be one of the two-seater robo taxis. He's just going himself. So he goes to work. Then, he has to go have lunch with somebody, one of his friends from work. They take the two-seater robo taxi. They come back. Maybe they random some other people from the office there. Now they got to take a Model 3 or a Model Y back, right? Because two seats don't work for them. So they take a Model 3 or Y back. Then he goes back home. Maybe he wants to go out with his family. They got 4 kids. All right, now they need to take a Model X because that has enough seats for them. Then maybe later he has to move a couch or something. He calls a Cybertruck. So there's going to be different vehicles, van, other stuff, different vehicles with different form factors that are optimized for different use cases. But in a robotaxi future, instead of right now where you kind of have to pick if you want a Model Y or you want a Cybertruck or whatever, in an autonomous future, you could pretty easily switch between these different vehicles. And the robotaxi would be the lowest cost per mile. It would be kind of the workhorse. That would be the one you want because it's the cheapest. If the cheapest cost per mile, if you are able to fit 1 or 2 people, if it works for you. But there's still going to be demand for other vehicles, which are actually going to make more money per mile because they have greater capabilities in terms of cargo capacity and people capacity.
Thank you. Greg, I pinned the bet at the top. Okay, so let me just explain here. Tesla uses 4680 in sexy and will take any of the sexy vehicles, not all, and it's attached to this audio recording, so we can always check if there's any of the sexy vehicles by, and by means by the end of Q1 2025. Okay?
Perfect.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add to what Omar was saying is that it will likely be so user friendly that it'll predict the type of vehicle you need for that moment. And so if it's when you're driving to work and it knows that typically that's the Robotaxi two-seater because it's only you, it will sort of recommend that. And then on the way back from lunch, it's going to recommend something that seats more people. Much like how today will predict already kind of where you're going as you step into your vehicle.
All right. We have a couple of people requesting to speak. Let me just do a quick check. Okay. No. And Omar, I think, is coming back. Let's see if there's any questions in the live chat. Don't you believe as Robotaxi come close, won't that have a positive effect on 3 and Y with FSD, as there will be more volume and capabilities there? Yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited for the future of this purpose-built Tesla Robotaxi. And I think that anybody who wants, I mean, most of the people who want to own a vehicle, I think will want to own one of the sexy vehicles. But I think most people will simply ride on the Tesla's purpose-built Robotaxi vehicles, the Robotaxi platform. So not just one, multiple vehicles built on the unboxed assembly line, or not even an unboxed assembly method. And I think that's going to form most of the transportation, ground transportation going forward. And any sort of improvements in 4680 production at Giga Texas, I think is going to go into Cybertruck as far as the eye can see. But Omar, what do you think about that? Where do you see Cybertruck production rates, say a year, 2 years down the line at Giga Texas?
No, and then here's your straw.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
So I think it's a little bit difficult to tell at this point. Demand for the Cybertruck looks pretty strong, but we haven't really seen what it looks like at the lower price points and where it kind of settles down after the hype dies out. But I could see it getting to anywhere between 250,000 to 500,000 units near term. I think the 250,000 capacity they've announced, they'll probably bump that up to 500,000 quickly, assuming they can launch the standard range models next year and it's a success. If orders are coming in and they can really get it to a point where it's profitable at 60K, it could be easily 500,000 units or more. I've said I could see this actually outselling the Model Y in the United States.
Greg, what do you think is the cap or like a likely upper limit in the US, in North America, let's say? So US, Canada, and I mean, the rest is going to be very little. But what do you think is an upper likely limit for the Cybertruck production and deliveries annualized?
Well, my initial thoughts were that they should sell at least 500,000, but the last couple of times Elon spoke, he said 250,000 in one spot, and then on Joe Rogan, he said around 200,000. So I'm kind of hoping he's lowballing it. If you look at what this truck can do versus other competitors at a similar price point, I would think they would be able to do 500,000 a year. So if I lose the coffee bet just because the Cybertruck production exploded and they needed all those batteries, I think that'd be great. If they do 200,000 Cybertrucks next year, that means they're going to need roughly 25 gigawatt hours from the 4680 line. If they have 8 lines up and running, that's only 3 gigawatt hours per line, and Tesla's trying to get at least 10. So, you know, on their trajectory right now, it looks like they'll be ahead of the Cybertruck ramp, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
the fundamental limiter is going to be demand, obviously. 4680 is not the issue here because they can put some other kind of pack in it. It's not like it can only run on 4680s. They might have to do some design work, but if the demand is there, they'll find a way to need it. So long-term 4680 is not the limiting factor. I don't think people realize they're turning the corner on 4680s. I have a 4680 vehicle. I'm sitting in one right now. I use it all the time. It's great. They figured out how to make their own cells. It works. All they have to do now is ramp up. And as they ramp up, they're going to have more 4680s than Panasonic cells or LG cells or anything else combined other than LFP. So it could potentially be very significant and come in at a lower cost. The IRA subsidies, especially, just make it kind of potentially a shocking proposition. Save aside, the cost savings they're achieving through science, there's going to be a massive tax incentive as well. So I think it is potentially, significant, but that's not really going to be the limiter on the Cybertruck. The Cybertruck ultimately will be determined by demand. If they, for some reason, can never figure out how to really scale up 4680s to hundreds of thousands of units, they can get something else there.
Let's see what Matthew, Donegan, Ryan has to say on Cybertruck production at Giga Texas. Matthew, obviously the first line installed with a nameplate capacity of about 200 to 250,000 units per year. But there's nothing really keeping Tesla from installing another line for the Cybertruck if the demand proves strong. And there are multiple indications, obviously, that the demand is going to be very strong for this product. I believe there's an auction going on right now that's about $250,000. So what do you think is the likely upper limit for the Cybertruck demand in North America analyzed?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why Tesla can't compete volume wise with the F-150. So the F-150 on a good year does 750,000 units. The Ram and the GM versions, their trucks, do less than that. But I think combined, there's about 1.5+ million light duty truck sales in the U.S. And if what happened with the Model Y happens with the Cybertruck, which I think it will, is that Tesla will be able to make a very compelling vehicle at a price point that is lower than similarly equipped ICE versions. The Cybertruck is already lower priced than a loaded F-150 Raptor, and it can outperform it in everything except for towing range, but it can outperform it in towing capacity, in hauling capacity, in acceleration, in ruggedness. Maybe it's not quite as good off road, but it's pretty damn close. So as the cheaper Cybertruck comes out, the 2-wheel drive version at what is it, 61, 62,000, in a couple of years, Tesla will likely have lower trim or lower cost versions where you can get a 4-door, 6-foot bed Cybertruck for $50,000 to $60,000. If you go into your local Ford store, you have to spend at least $60,000 for a crew cab F-150 4-wheel drive, and it's not nearly as well equipped as what a Cybertruck is. So yeah, I don't see any reason why Tesla can't surpass 750K units a year.
No hands, Modomar.
Well, it's actually kind of interesting when you look at some of the sales data from the first quarter. Pickup trucks are actually one of the only segments that wasn't growing in the US. And there are a couple of reasons for this. I like to say nobody wants to buy them anymore because of the Cybertruck. But I think Ford is even down to around 600,000 units annualized for the F-150 in North America, which is, considerably down from 750. It was even, 900,000 units a year at one point. So it's down considerably. People are citing higher interest rates as well as higher costs. The pickup truck prices, they can be $60,000 to $100,000 sometimes. So these are very expensive vehicles. Given the cost of interest, smart buyers know they shouldn't finance too much. They should limit the amount that they're financing. Pay cash as much as possible. Ideally, get a car you can pay for all in cash, or you have minimal amount of financing. As a result, consumer choice is kind of shifting away from splurging on vehicles a little more, things like a big fancy pickup truck, an electric vehicle. These things are seeing slower growth because consumers are saying, just give me something cheap that I can buy for cash, maybe a used car that I don't have to finance. So it is kind of interesting, pickup has traditionally been the number one segment in North America. People do love pickups, but at the same time, people have been choosing less of the vehicles they really want, maybe, and more of what is not going to hurt their budget as much. So I think there is still a large demand for a pickup type vehicle, a vehicle of the size, the spaciousness of the Cybertruck. The truth is, functionally, this thing can do everything your average American wants to do with the pickup truck. And I think there's a tremendous unmet demand there. If you have a player like Tesla that comes in trying to drive costs down, They've got a really new innovative product. There could be a lot of sort of unmet demand there. And with the way the pricing is in the pickup segment, it makes it easier for them to come out with something cost competitive. 60,000 with the 7,500 point of sale credit plus the 45 kilowatt hour, battery subsidy, you could get under the average price of a nice pickup, I think, as early as next year, which is kind of crazy.
All right. Greg, obviously you follow the 4680 production very closely at Giga Texas. You watch the drone videos, you parse and analyze Drew's and Elon's comments. I'm sure you've watched the battery day a number of times. Where do you think the total 4680 production will be a year from today at Giga Texas?
Well, they're going to have all 8 lines installed by the end of the year, and then they just got to ramp them, like Omar said. We don't know the materials themselves that they use to put into the cells. They built that cathode building near, on site at Giga Texas, and you're starting to see trucks unloading materials in that building. So that could lead one to believe that it's starting to get operational. So if the materials themselves are not a bottleneck and all 8 lines are up and running, then by the end of next year, they should be at least at an 80 gigawatt hour run rate.
Yeah, I think another important point is, long term, I don't think 4680s are the limiter for Cybertruck, given they can put anything. But also in the short term, if you just go off the company's publicly released statements, they claim they're at about 1,000 trucks a week worth of 4680 cells, which is about 52,000 units a year. Now, if they were delivering at that rate, we would have, about 12.5 thousand Cybertrucks. So General Assembly is actually less than the level of cell production right now. If they had actually had General Assembly up to speed, able to produce 12,500 units, then the Cybertruck would have outsold the F-150 Lightning in the first quarter.
Yeah, I think we were all disappointed when they disengaged line 1 to redo it, to put the cyber cell on line 1. But now that they're ramping both those lines, we were very disappointed in the beginning, but we could be pleasantly surprised from here going forward. So, don't underestimate Tesla for ramping once they got the formula down. The only 2 things that I know that they need to add is they want to convert it to whatever they call it, a 95.5, to add more nickel, and at some point add silicon in the anode. But again, I don't think that's going to affect the ramping process. So we could get a lot of good news from here, and people like Machine.
Okay, hold on. So I really want to kind of dig into a bit more like specifics instead of kind of rhetoric and emotional, like disappointed, excited, all that stuff. So we're in the specifics mode. Okay. So you said 80 gigawatt hours total 4680 production by the end of this year, right? At Giga Texas. And then what about end of next year?
Next year for 80 gigawatt hours. They're ramping. They're ramping lines 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 coming online before the third quarter, supposedly, in my opinion. Then in the third and fourth quarter, they're going to ramp the other 4 lines. So by the end of next year, I would hope they're going to be at least at an 80 gigawatt hour run rate.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and again, forget the emotion. When I say disappointed, it's just that they had to retool the
Doesn't
first
matter.
line.
Doesn't matter. So we're moving on. Okay, so you said 80 gigawatt hours by the end of next year. And then, well, what about, they're making next version of these batteries once a year, once 18 months or so. Don't you think the next version, maybe V3 of 4680s, will have a higher energy density? And with each maybe production line, I'm sure these production lines are designed to incorporate the next version of the chemistry, etc. So don't you think we can do more than 80 by the end of next year? I would take you over on that one.
Well, the V2, the V1 supposedly was that engineering design when they did the 3-in-1 winder, where they didn't actually change the chemistry, but the manufacturing process, they were able to increase the density by 10 to 15% just from the engineering of the batteries. So supposedly the V3 cell is going to have a higher nickel content. And of course, the more density you put in there, that doesn't change the gigawatt hours, but they go further. You know what I mean? So it's going to be the same amount of batteries, but if they're more energy dense, then maybe the Cybertruck only needs a 115 kilowatt hour pack instead of 122.
All right. Any questions, comments? Please request to speak. Let's see. So if they do 80 by the next year, divided by, let's say, yeah. Yeah, I think as far as the eye can see, for the foreseeable future, I think 4680 is dedicated for Cybertruck production at Giga Texas.
Another way to put this all in context, the last time I heard, the Panasonic lines in Nevada, they had like 13 lines running and only doing 40 gigawatt hours. And supposedly they added like a 14th line that brought it up to like 43 or 44. So if you look at what Tesla's actually trying to do, it's unbelievable to be able to put out that many batteries in one factory. It's literally going to be twice the amount that Panasonic does if they succeed with half the amount of lines. So, you know, this could be a huge earnings driver going forward.
All right. Greg, how many sexy vehicles do you think Tesla will deliver in 2025, 2026?
Honestly, I'm focused mostly on FSD 12 and, you know, the ramp towards the Robotaxi. It's tough to say. I mean, you know, the Fed was projecting a recession in the first half of last year, and then the economy grew at 5%. So this macro has been very, very hard to predict. So if we run into some type of interest rate problem with the government and they slash interest rates, then obviously the 3 and the Y will get a big break on interest rates. So I just think there's too many parts. I never thought that the sales would have fallen off as far as they have, but that doesn't mean we won't be surprised on the upside going forward. So I'm going to not make a prediction on that.
Yeah. I mean, this reminds me early 2019 when I was surprised that Model S sales dropped sharply as Model 3 production ramped. And I think it just kind of goes to show again that an average Tesla buyer looks at the company as a tech company. And just like people wait for the newest iPhone, they wait for the next vehicle that Tesla is going to produce. They hear about these 48 volts, FSD 12s, hardware 4s, rear wheel steering, steer by wire, and they just want that. And that's why I think Cybertruck is getting so much attention. I mean, Omar and literally every single person that comes to this board, the Cybertruck owners in Austin that I meet in person, they all say the same thing. And go up to one of them, you'll notice very quickly that they have a routine. Like they act like this is the millionth time they're showing the Cybertruck. Oh yeah, you want to see this? Come over here. Oh yeah, you want your kid to sit in the front seats? Go ahead. Yeah, check this out. It's like they have a routine. They kind of go step by step by step. They give you a tour, like a well choreographed tour of their Cybertruck. And I think that's why the demand curve for the Cybertruck is going to be very elastic, meaning as the price declines, Tesla will unlock orders. And even if this, tax credit that's here today isn't here after the elections, I think it would be okay for the Cybertruck demand. I think that I agree with Matthew, Donovan, Ryan that the Cybertruck will outsell the F-150 sooner than people think. Maybe there's a coffee bet there, actually. But Greg, go ahead.
The first time I saw a Cybertruck in person was at a Tesla charging station, and when the guy pulled up, people flocked in about 2 minutes. About 8 kids came flying out of a local restaurant to come see the Cybertruck. I mean, you hear these stories and it sounds like people are exaggerating. And within about 10 minutes, this guy was surrounded. I just wanted to talk to him about the truck. I never even got a chance to talk to him. People were taking selfies, photos, videos. I mean, you could buy a $500,000 Ferrari and not get anywhere near the attention that the Cybertruck got in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina. So I agree. I mean, if this Cybertruck does 500,000-600,000 a year, that's just going to bring more attention to the Model Y. And the more people that realize about this $7,500 point of purchase discount, at some point that catches on. I thought it would have caught on by now, but at some point this year, I think that's going to really help sales of Model Y.
I think that's the quote of the day. You could buy a $500,000 Lamborghini and not get nearly as much attention as Cybertruck owners do. Cybertruck does. Greg 40177.
Man, I went from the outhouse to the penthouse. I'm feeling good today, and the stock was up.
You could buy a $500,000 Lamborghini and not get nearly as much attention as the Cybertruck. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's how it works. You get your facts wrong, you'll move down. You show that you follow these details about the 468 line and everything, you'll go up. And it happens to everybody. Omar?
So, I was driving my Cybertruck down to Venice Beach, and a guy came up to me and he said, "Oh my God, I actually have a Lamborghini. I have a Bugatti. I had a Model S Plaid. But you know what? And this is going to sound stupid. I love the Tesla. It was faster than my Bugatti. It was faster than my Lamborghini. I love the tech and everything. But you know what? This is going to sound stupid, but I sold it after a few years because everybody has one around here. And I wanted something a little flashier, something that stands out, something that's exciting, a sports car type of thing." And I go, "Well, you're going to love this thing. The Cyber Beast goes 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds." And it has that newness for him. It's something that stands out. It's something that turns heads. So there is a market of people who buy cars like Lamborghinis and Bugattis and McLarens because they want a car that's like that. And I think the Cybertruck is definitely one of those vehicles.
All right, Greg, another coffee bet. Or maybe, yeah, actually, Matthew's on my side, I think, on this one. Greg, when do you think, I think we're all bullish on Cybertruck right now. Maybe we should get a bear in here. Is Bud News in here? No. I don't see any bears in here today. If there's a bear in the audience that I don't recognize, please request to speak. Let's make some coffee bets.
The bears are crying in the bathroom right now. They don't get it. They thought they were about to get so rich after this delivery miss. They loaded up on puts. Brad Munchin tweeting, "I'm going to short more." And for some reason, the stock keeps going up. They're perplexed.
Hey, you forgot to mention the disastrous China delivery numbers this morning. When I woke up, when I woke up and I saw the China numbers at like 1,900 for last week, I said, "Oh my God, if we're not down 5% today, I'll be happy." And then the stock started going up. I just think people don't care right now. Everybody wants to know what's going to happen on 8/8. The Bears cannot disprove 8/8 until after the event. So we could have a 4-month period where the Bulls just keep getting more and more excited about FSD 12 and all the videos and how it's improving. And you can't disprove that Robotaxi until they release it. So, if the stock goes to 400 and we all look back and say, what the hell happened? Well, weird things happen with the market. I had never expected Tesla to drop this far, but by the same point, it could be a lot higher on nothing. And it's just because people are looking forward.
Well, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. There is still significant risk. The earnings could be bad. It could be a loss. This valuation could start looking pretty rich if you value it just based on what the earnings expectations are. So I think there's definitely still some risks, but at the same time, people are starting to talk about the AI story. Serious people. People are going on TV and talking about it. Analysts are putting out notes and saying, we're no longer bearish on this because of the Robotaxi and AI story. People are starting to take note. And, as for the China deliveries, it looked like a lot of the other brands were down as well. I think they had some festival or something. And it was also the first week of the quarter. So I'm going to wait and see what we have for the next few weeks before drawing any conclusions that sales are imploding or something. Sometimes you can have some week that's just sort of an anomaly. There's some other factor. Maybe they're tooling up the factory for Model 3 Ludicrous or something like that. But if, it stays this low for the next few quarters, then obviously there's probably an issue.
The Gary Blacks of the world feast on these numbers. And, Wall Street in the past has taken every opportunity to point to China weakness. So I looked at a couple of the spreadsheets like Tesla Chan that give the running totals. I think you have to go back into middle of last year, except for Chinese New Year to get a number that low. So I'm with you. I don't think there's a demand problem in China. It's just that the market usually uses this as an excuse to hit the stock. So my thinking is when you have technically bad news coming out and the stock going up anyway with the delivery numbers and the China numbers and Tony Scaganucci with his 38th short report on Tesla, they just keep pounding it and it's going up. So I'm just saying that could be a good sign. I'm not saying it's going to 400, but what I'm saying is if it did do that, when we look back, people are going to say, what the hell were we worried about the first quarter? The Robotaxi's coming out.
Greg, let me ask you this. Let's kind of switch to more fundamental instead of kind of short-term speculation around stock price. In Q1 results, James Catt put out and said, Q1 could have negative free cash flow. I think, honestly, in my opinion, that's more of a foregone conclusion at this point. But on GAAP earnings, first of all, do you do quarterly earnings forecasting?
Can I tell you the metric that I do look at when a stock's beat
Yeah.
up like this? Okay. So the way I'm looking at this is obviously Tesla has underperformed their earnings power from all the price cuts. So when a stock falls like this, one of the very important metrics to look at is price to sales. Okay. I think when Tesla first hit its all-time high, the sales were going from something like 35 to 55 billion. And when they hit a market cap of over $1 trillion, they were selling it over 20 times sales. So for a company where their main line of business is automotive, to be selling at 20 times sales, that was stretched beyond belief, even though the earnings would have shown you at that time, wow, look at all these earnings, look at all this earnings power. Now we have the reverse. We have the earnings power going in the wrong way, but they still have a very high level of sales. So I don't know what anybody's using for a revenue number, but for argument's sake,
Okay.
let's say if it's 100, they're 12 times sales.
Okay. I thought this was kind of going to tie into my question, but my question is, what do you think is the probability that we might have negative bottom line earnings in Q1?
Okay, it's possible because of that inventory build that their cash flow is negative. It's possible, but look at it another way.
Okay,
my
that's not Greg. I'm not asking you to spin it. Okay, I'm literally just asking a very specific question. All right.
Okay,
Now
but
we have
you have a lot of moving parts. You have the mega pack deferred revenue that could be a bonus. You have the inventory build that's a negative. The ASPs, we don't know what the ASPs are because the prices remain stable, but they did localized inventory discounting. So I would love to give you a clear answer, but there's just a lot of variables. That's all.
okay. I understand. So you said, yeah, I'm not looking for a very specific, like, 29% probability. I'm looking, just you said possible. So it's possible, but doesn't sound like you believe it's more than likely. So somewhere between 10 to 50% probability of signing to that. Probably not as high as 50%, but anyway. All right. Let's get Ultra Red Model 3's thoughts, and then we have Gregor Truck on board. I want to focus on some Cybertruck, Giga Texas, his experience owning the Cybertruck. So Ultra Red Model 3, go ahead.
Hey, this is Tesla 420. I changed my name, but so I think there's a decent probability that they have negative earnings in Q1. You got to factor in the Cybertruck ramp, as you guys said, the building inventory, also all the, I'm assuming NVIDIA H100s that they bought. So I really am concerned about that. Long term, I'm bullish, but I really am concerned in the short term.
Okay, thank you. All right. Greg, how are you?
Good. I missed you. I had to hop on and say hello, Yaman.
Hello. I missed you too.
Howdy,
How is
howdy.
Cybertruck doing for you? How is the Cybertruck ownership going?
So good, man. It's just I'm sure we could all beat that drum to death, but it just still wouldn't be enough of doing the justice that the thing deserves. Of just the product that they've put out here is really really compelling, and it's cool to show it to other truck guys and have them see it and be like, oh, that's okay, like that's actually pretty cool and. That air suspension plays on people's perceptions of like how large it is, and I slam it down a lot to make it sit and low and makes it look small. And then I lift it up, they're like, oh, okay, the clearance is actually really good, or it's larger than I thought. But me personally, I'm enjoying the crap out of it, man. It's I'm so grateful to have my truck.
Has anything changed in your view of the Cybertruck since you bought it? Like going into it, you had certain expectations, obviously, everything that we've seen from the pictures and drone shots. And, obviously you have connections at the company as well, everything you've heard. And then versus today, looking back on it, is it pretty much as expected? Or if it's, above and beyond, in what aspects? If it's worse than expected, in what aspects?
The one gripe I think that is pretty unanimous with most of the other owners at the moment is the charging curve, and it's still not that bad. I get out. There's a Walmart that I charge at. There's a supercharger in the parking lot, and it's not fun getting out in the Walmart parking lot. But like I get out, and it's fortunately this time of year it's really beautiful in Phoenix. So I just kind of walk around and get away from the truck to avoid people asking to get in, sit in, see in, or just whatever question they may have. I go away from the truck while it charges for the most part, but um, I adore it, and it's cool to see Kylie get in and be like, it's just so well done. Like, how in the world do you design a product with city first? Like, there is this. It's just such a well executed product, but the charging curve, as we're seeing and hearing more publicly now, is going to get better. It's going to get a lot better, so that's really the cool part. But to now have there be some official word of a little bit of a timeline of when that will start to kind of see the public was that's good stuff, and especially since that's on V3, like that's not V4 at all.
Yeah. All right. And let's see. I think before you joined, we're not accepting the request to speak right now. Before you joined, we were talking about the production rate and deliveries rate potential for the Cybertruck in North America. Let me ask you this way. When do you think Cybertruck deliveries, which is the first quarter when Cybertruck outsells the F-150?
The F-150 Lightning or the F-150 Ice pickup?
Overall F-150, just F-150 ICE, yeah, diesel, ICE, etc.
Yeah. Well, there's the F series, so it gets to 250, 350, but to keep it like short and sweet, that's a very uphill battle. But there's a lot of pricing power that Tesla has with the Cybertruck that's not realized because they're currently pricing us all quite high. I still think there's a very legitimate possibility that we see the Cybertruck get down into the 60s, starting with a 6 instead of currently a 9. But it obviously will start with a 7 inside of the next 12 to 18 months. Uh, but I think that we could see it really being a major contender for the F-150 altogether by like mid 2027. I think you got to think about it in the context that every unsold F-150 or every sold Cybertruck is potentially very legitimately a possible unsold F-150. So that takes away and it really evens the playing field twice as fast as people think. Because one away is one to give and one in pocket, so it's positive there. But I could see like a 2027, mid 2027 figure as we see the single come online, the real charging curve comes to be, V4 gets out there, and then all of a sudden, a lot of the points of contention that people have for EV overall, it really will change their mind. Like, I think there is thankfully going to be a lot more education that's spread. As there's just more sold and as the majors get in play that do the biggest buyer of TV ads, I think, is automotive, right? Like Chevy and GM and such. So they're going to have to advertise these vehicles that they're making, which will happenstance. We saw it in the Super Bowl last year. That will be a Tesla ad. So as they clarify and bring true, and nonetheless, they'll show their vehicles charging at Tesla superchargers in these ads, all of a sudden it's going to just change the public sentiment a lot. There's still a lot of ignorance out there, obviously, as there's with a lot of things, but I think as those things get dispelled, the Cybertruck will climb a lot in its sales. Also, we need availability amongst everything else, but yeah.
Okay, let's switch to 4680 production at Giga Texas. Do you have any updates for us that you might have heard or rumors about the 4680 production ramp at Giga Texas?
Nothing specific. I get a thumbs up whenever I ask about that one, and so I remain pretty bullish on 4680 and what they're getting there. My big next thing that I want to see happen is cathode come online, which I think there are elements of cathode that are being messed with right now, but there's not the cathode plant quite yet. But that will be a very big deal to overall 4680 scale.
Would you be able to put any parameters around that, any figures? When you say big scale, where do you think the cathode plant will take 4680 production at Giga Texas from what figure to what figure?
Yeah, so I mean, it's for me the way that I kind of interpret and understand. I'm not an engineer, but um, as the cathode plant comes online, it will afford efficiency and density that is currently not there. So you will see substantially more cells, but those cells will be more dense, which means fewer cells in a pack. So overall, like Omar posted up and it exploded the half full pack. That's a really big deal that they could put the same pack size, right? The same 1,366 cells that are in the Cybertruck right now. But if they had a 10% boost in efficiency, all of a sudden you're looking at a 350 to 370 mile range Cybertruck with the same size pack. That's not a double layered. That's nothing. That's just simply them finding better chemistry outcomes and better yields and better probabilities, which affords a cheaper pack. So I couldn't give you an exact sale or a forecasted sell count, but they're clearly pumping cells out. There's also more lines for 4680 that are being built at Giga Texas. So that'll also be a really big deal as those come online. But the cathode plant is that's a juicy one for me to see what happens there.
Yeah, what do you think about that article that was published yesterday that had a picture of a 4680 battery pack tore down by Sander Monroe? And the article stated that it was half full But then we had,
West the best.
oh my gosh, no, not West the best.
West
Gosh,
Merrill.
why do I keep forgetting this? I keep forgetting this guy's name. It's so fucking embarrassing. Hold on.
West
Skip for
Merrill, right?
time. Horrible manners host. Horrible. No, this is somebody who used to work with Santa Monroe, and then before that worked at Tesla for 3 years. Now
Oh,
works at CATL.
the vent thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he would be wiser than I am on that, but it's
Antonio.
cool that half full pack thing is out
Yeah,
there now. And
Antonio. Thank you. Thank you very much. Antonio Dinino. He was here yesterday, very generous with his time, answered dozens of questions, extremely intelligent, obviously, very experienced in his field, and also worked at Tesla for 3 years as a laboratory technician, and responsible for quality. And so I hope that we can have him here. And it doesn't help that I don't remember his name. Anyway, Greg, go ahead.
I'd love to have been on here for that. Sorry, I was busy yesterday, but I had seen the comments about like the air channels and stuff for cooling the pack. But that's where I kind of am curious to see too if they don't do a full-on double stacked pack, but if they do some sort of like an oscillated placement of cells, so like they're kind of staggered, and so that allows the air to still flow. But that's where the cathode. Let's just say that they don't have this double stacked pack capability. That's where the cathode stays really important to me is finding overall battery efficiencies and figuring out better density and stuff. That's where I think the real money is going to be at overall for Tesla and the profitability. They can stuff a bunch of cells.
Wait, so the battery pack is not half full, but you're saying they're going to double stack it? Is that what you're saying?
If they did, like
but they're not going to do that, right? They're not going to double stack.
I don't think so.
Like GM did with Hummer, yeah.
Right. That's
what do they mean by half full?
There's a lot of room to spare. There's a lot of room in that pack.
Okay. So I guess that would kind of allow them to produce a Cybertruck with 500-mile range with further improvements in the energy density of 4650 once the cathode factory comes online and ramps. So we're talking a couple of years down the line here.
Yeah, it's a year and a half, 2 years from now. I wouldn't be surprised that there is a path to an integrated cell or an integrated high voltage pack that achieves a mid-high 400-mile range pack size.
Okay, thank you.
You're
we made a
30%.
coffee.
Sorry.
Gotcha. That's okay. I think there's a bit of a delay, but we're talking. We made a coffee bet earlier, me and Meta. I'll pin this at the top and ask you to predict who will win this coffee bet. Okay. Tesla will ramp to 1,000 per week purpose-built Robotaxi or semi in 2025 by the end of 2025.
You said semi or Robotaxi?
Yeah, what he was saying was, if they don't get to do Robotaxi, it's going to be because they ramp something else like semi.
Well, I mean, the initial factory that I think will build Robotaxis is probably going to be Giga Texas, and that's more of a pilot line than a volume line. But I mean, even on pilot Cybertruck line, they were achieving decent figures in burst. The semi though, they've done a low key like redesign, not physically, but the internals of it. So when that goes to volume, I'd imagine that it's manufacturing intent. By the end of 2025, so that's 18-ish months away from now. 20 months. That's tough. I wish it was end of 2026. I'd be very, very confident in the semi over the Robotaxi being in volume figures like that. We just don't even have like we have Elon's 8/8 date for the Robotaxi. I can't wait to go to that. That'll be so cool to see that thing. It's pretty sharp. But
What do you think they're going to talk about on August 8th? What do you think they will unveil? let your imagination run wild.
Yeah, I think they'll unveil a really sharp concept. Not a concept. I don't like that word. I don't like concept. I think they'll show a production intent, looking like we saw in 2019 with Cybertruck. Like, this is what we're gonna build. And the wild card for me is if we see them do something that's like, I don't think they're gonna build a hat like what we've seen on Waymos and stuff, where it's this package that you can put on the roof of it. But yeah, I think that we see the Robotaxi vehicle, and it's one of the things that they'll probably showcase is it doing complex full self-drive maneuvers, like parallel parking itself, which I think is kind of complex. Um, Stop sign logic, hand gestures, maybe even because of ride hailing, and so knowing where to go to you or whatnot, you can literally stick your hand up and wave it left and right, and it identifies you by proximity of, like, just things like that, where it's like they've it's a product. It's not a piece of software. It's
Okay.
an overall product.
So you're saying they will have a purpose-built Robotaxi, and
Yes.
they'll showcase the capabilities of FSD by August 8th, and maybe talk about the production line for the purpose of the Robotaxi, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But you don't expect any sort of production starts, any sort of send a software update, enable the current fleet, be it Robotaxis or anything of that sort.
I think 2025 is going to be the real year of like Robotaxi. They'll show off the vehicle because they have to do that before they show everybody else. But internally, if you know how to search for things, you can find renders of it. So I mean, it's bouncing around inside already. I wouldn't be surprised if it leaks even, but it's pretty cool.
Okay, great. And now let me ask you about Cybertruck. Back to Cybertruck. So there's a couple of auctions going on for the Cybertruck. One of them went up to $250,000, right, Craig?
Yeah, the Sotheby's one.
Yeah, that's kind of insane.
It is and isn't. I mean, beasts are still pretty tight. So yeah, I think the market rate right now for a beast is 232,000. I was just on Atlanta something, and they had 4 or 5 of them that they claim they have an inventory for 232. I'd seen somebody else in, I believe it was Florida, that also had one for the same, or like 231.5 or something like that. Like they're ping ponging like that. But yeah, that like 230 seems to be the rate. But I wonder if the allure of Sotheby's being the facilitator of the auction gives people confidence, and also their email list. But TBD.
You didn't answer my question when Cybertruck will outsell. Oh, you said 2027. That's right. I'll take a
Yes.
coffee bet on that.
You want the over or the under?
The under, of course. I mean, come on. You know
Sure.
who you're
Bullish,
talking to.
bullish.
You said mid 2027, didn't you?
Yeah, that's kind of, I could see there being a route to that if they get really aggressive with the price and the points of contention of EV ownership for many people drop. But um, I don't know. I'm seeing few people that have an outspoken hate in person, and I think that if they were actually shown the realities of the vehicle, they might be less uh, angsty as they are on the internet about how stupid it is or whatever. It's once they actually know what it is, and sure, keep your F-250 for now, enjoy it. Like that's cool. But if let's just say they did double the pack and they had a 500-mile range native integrated high voltage pack in the Cybertruck, and then they still are going to do the range extender, you have a 750-mile range towing vehicle at that point, which is most people don't need, but they feel like they do. And so all of a sudden you have this Hercules crazy ass truck. I don't know. There's a path. There's a path.
All right. Well, the bet is on. Any questions for Greg? Please request to speak. Ron, go ahead. Ron, you have to unmute yourself for us to hear you. Maybe a connection issue here. Greg, Tesla introduced, I think 8 or 10 more wrap colors, right?
Yeah.
Did you get yours wrapped?
Yeah, I actually did Dynamic Tint in Tempe, Arizona here. They did my wrap. I got a matte black wrap on mine.
Oh, that's nice.
I
Yeah, I've been
love
seeing
it.
some different naps around Austin. It looks really, really good.
It's cool to see what people are doing with it because you can wrap literally whatever color you want. But mine's matte black, and my ambers and tail lights are smoked out. It just looks more stealthy and more tankish. There's a picture on my profile I'd actually posted yesterday, and um, with sweet overcast, and it just looks very end of the world.
Ron, go ahead. Ron's having issues. Clay, go ahead.
I was watching CNBC this morning and I saw Kramer talking about the Cybertruck, saying it was a total flop, which I just thought was hilarious, given what you're saying that the resale values are going for. I'm just curious if you've heard of that and what you think the genesis is and what's going on with CNBC.
Yeah, I mean they are selling for this, so it's not like they're getting posted up and like just looking cool on the internet or something. I met a guy yesterday. I went to the bank. I'm closing a deal right now on a property that I own for a new tenant. And I was at the bank getting the routing account number, and this man in a Toyota or a Nissan Frontier work truck. How do you like it? And the second question out of his mouth was, "Has anybody offered you $200,000 for it yet?" Those the top, so like it's top of people's mind, the insane what they're going for, and that's again where I think the reality needs to come out of what they actually cost. But I think that per usual, the spin of the media has to happen to get people engaged. And here we are talking about it later in the day, and now CNBC is in your mind, and that's just kind of how it works. Not being all woke mind virus or whatever. It's just that's how it works. Is being crazy, so people talk about it.
Yeah, and obviously CNBC gets a lot of money from Ford and others and GM for advertising revenue, so they can't really. I mean, it's almost like he has to say these things. I mean, Jim Cramer used to say, "F-150 Lightning will kill the Cybertruck." You know, there's video of him. I posted it about a year or two ago when he said this, and he just says these things. You know,
Ford,
when you
they
get
had a
millions of
they had a
dollars.
they had a decent quarter one with the Lightning, and I was impressed by what they put out. But dude, they're ramped like that. That's not a ramped figure. I'm very very certain quarter two on Cybertruck will be the number one selling EV pickup truck. Um, I'm I'm fairly shocked that it didn't happen in quarter one. It was a great quarter, especially be their literal first full quarter of production and delivery for customers. There are no there's no reason that Ford and Rivian should have it this close to Tesla in quarter one of probably one of the hardest to make vehicles of all time. That's pathetic. That's so pathetic. So yeah, per usual.
Great.
Hey, Gregor, I know you watched the GOT videos like a lot of us do and saw the one where there was over 500 Cybertrucks on the lot. I think it was last week. In your estimation, do you think we're at like 1,000 a week yet for the Cybertruck or not yet? And do you think by this quarter it'll ramp significantly to where we get to maybe 2,000 a week? Like, what are your thoughts on the ramp?
I could see a 1,500 a week figure for the higher end of this quarter, maybe 2,000, but I don't think we're quite to 1,000 just yet. And we're in week two now of quarter two. But dude, I've been impressed multiple times with the ramp so far. I was pretty bearish on like it's going to be really really slow up until like late April, early May, but that late April, early May was actually mid March was where I started to see the figures of like, holy smokes, like this is going good. And again, more thumbs up from people in Texas, which is nice to see. It's really cool after it being I keep telling people it was 2 years late for a reason. Like they've really engineered a vehicle that, like I said, it's supposed to be the hardest to make, but it's pretty easy to make in reality. It's just figuring out how to actually make it easy to make was the hard part. But now that they've made this very production intent vehicle, it's clearly going well. But these days where you see these large lotfuls of trucks, it's various things. You have weather across the country that can keep drivers away or whatnot, but logistics issues can make it a little difficult to ship out 500 trucks a week right now. So they're still doing what they can to get them on the rail and they shoot them out. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed with how it's going.
Greg, do you have any favorite stories with people coming up to you? Have you had, I'm sure you had dozens, if not more than 100 people asking you questions about your Cybertruck. Any favorite stories?
The self-awareness has gotten funny lately. I'm sure that people ask you every day or how often does this happen? And like I just try to not be a jerk about it and be like literally everywhere I go. Um the funny thing is seeing people realize old people are funny. That's one that's funny. Like she wasn't old, but yesterday there's a lady, or Sunday there's a lady in a truck and she was reading the Foundation Series badge on the side. And she said, "Oh, it's a Foundation truck." She didn't know it. And then she waves at me, roll my window down. She goes, What is it?" And I was like, "It's a Cybertruck." She goes, "What's Foundation?" I was like, "It's the first ones." She thought that the truck was called the Foundation truck. And she's like, "It looks like a tank." And
That's
I'm
really
like,
funny.
"Yeah, I mean, it is. It is a tank. It's pretty crazy." But then the old people that also try to walk around and figure out, because maybe they just don't know, but I find it less and less likely that people don't know at this point, as much as it's just their only potential icebreaker to get to ask you whatever insane question they have about, "How do you like it?" or "Is it fast? How long does it take to charge?" And I'm like, "That's a loaded question. It's changing all the time. It's about to get really short." But yeah.
That's pretty funny. So she has never even heard of the Cybertruck before.
Yeah, I see that more with the old community. And like I believed
Like,
them
wait,
more.
okay, so can we put some parameters? I mean, hold on. How can I do this tactfully? Let me ask you this way: what percent of the people come up to you don't have never, like, you can tell they've never heard of the Cybertruck before?
5% ish, like a very
Okay,
small
gotcha,
percent.
gotcha.
But I would say 40% say, "What is it?" Oh, I mean, I was filming with his channel's Taylosive EV last week, and there was a guy that drives up in an F-150 and goes, "What is it?" And I said, "This is the new F-150." And he's like, "Very funny." And I was like, "It's a Cybertruck." And he's like, "I knew, I was just," and sometime I was with Jeeves a couple weeks ago, and he's telling people it's a Honda Ridgeline. Just like screw with them. They know what it is. It's just like I said, it's their icebreaker of like, "Can I see it?" or whatever. And yeah, but I would say that, yeah, the actual population percentage that has not heard of it, very small. Very, very small.
Got it. Thank you for the color. Interesting, very interesting. All right, well, we have a coffee bet. I hope that you come more often. Have you heard anything about FSD on the Cybertruck? When is that coming, do you think?
I'm not picked at that too hard just because FSD is like the hardest thing that they're doing inside. So to be the goofy guy, it's like, "Hey, when?" I've not picked at that too hard, because they also get a lot of shit on the internet that it's not there. So then it's really, I don't want to be that guy, and then my phone calls don't get answered. Uh, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some level of full self-drive in the spring or summer, like late spring. But that's hopium on my end. We'll see. But the fact that they included it in the Foundation series, I feel like is at least there's some they've got it coming soonish. But really been enjoying FSD in our Model Y, and I hope to get that on my Cybertruck soon.
Perfect. Princip in Esilio, go ahead.
Hey, same question regarding the Cybertruck and FSD since we are talking about it. Do we know anything that whoever the people that actually ordered the Cybertruck few years ago, are they going to honor that FSD price? Remember the FSD price was a bit lower than 8,000, 10,000. I'm not sure, probably 6,000 at that point.
It was 7,000 back during the 2019 reservations. There's nothing official on that, but I believe that's a demand lever.
Uh,
For Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. I understand the price was not the 39,000 for the lowest vehicle, but at least the FSD, since it's software, I hope they actually honor that price at least.
Right. So kind of what I guessed and I could see happening is that Tesla, when they decide to, says, we'll honor your FSD price in 24 months, whatever. Like there's a few different demand levers that they have up their sleeve. I actually wouldn't be surprised if once Foundation Series is over, if the price actually goes up on the Cybertruck. Great. You didn't want it at 99,000 with full self-drive and all that. You didn't get your email. Cool. Now we're going to mark it up to 85,000 and see who we can get for that. And then we'll drop it to 79,000 because the press will run with it and say there's no demand, but then people will buy it and etc. So they've got several different things that they could do, but the packaged product that they have out right now, that includes full self-drive, and the current status is that that's where it's at, and that's what's officially been said, is that that's the path for it. They've not said whether or not they will honor or not honor full self-drive price. I think eventually they will, but who the heck knows when, man? You might be waiting 2 or 3 years. So if you want to get it, if not, cool, next.
West Hicks, you are next.
What's going on? Hey, Yaman, could you do me and a few thousand people a favor and try to find out from Tesla Scope or somebody else what's going on with the cars that are still not upgraded to 12? I've got a 2017 Model S and I'm still on 11.4.9. I'm one of those, I'm on a 2024 branch that hasn't upgraded yet. And, I have no clue why we haven't received the download.
Well, I know why. Because cheap Teslas is down there telling Tesla to not do that, so that you trade in your 2017 Model S, which he said he likes yesterday, trade it into him and get a new one, a nice Model S Plaid West 6. You deserve. You are a global sales, marketing, advertising executive. You rock the world. You deserve a Model S Plaid.
I love the way you say that. Can you say it again?
I mean,
Hey, Gregor, I know that you've helped some people like Kim Kardashian and Pharrell acquire their Cybertrucks. I was just wondering if maybe you could help me get ahead in my line. Thank you.
Call my people.
all right. West 6, did you want to follow up with that? I mean, I think, it's obvious, right? I know. I mean, why don't you? Do you have like free supercharging or something? Is that why you're not upgrading?
I do have that. I'm hearing that the legacy Model S's and X's and maybe some others, I just haven't been upgraded yet for some reason. I don't know if it's because we don't have an interior camera or what other difference it might be. But I think it's a lot of people, and I think there's 2 branches that are on 2024. I'm on 2024.2.7, I think, and there's another one, .8. something. But I don't really get it. And everyone I know has 12, right? Just not me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, how many people do you think are in your shoes, West 6?
I'm guessing maybe 10 to 20% of the fleet.
No way. Wait, 10 to 20% of Model S fleet.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's that's a fair point.
That's why. I mean, they don't want to, Gregor truck. Like we have new Model 3s that don't have Model, or the Cybertruck that doesn't have FSD. You know what I mean?
Are you keeping your head shaved, or is that like a one-time deal?
Keeping it.
I
Summer
like
look.
it. It looks great. I mean, that looked great. Way to pull it off. Did you lose a bet, or what happened?
No, I change it up every now and then.
I dig
You
it.
know?
That's awesome. It's a good
Yeah.
look.
Thank you.
Rock and
Appreciate
roll.
that. All right. West 6, did you have anything else?
I do have a pet peeve that's just kind of bugging me. I don't know if you guys want to get into FSD again and some of the bears.
Go ahead. Bring down the mood.
Well, it's just I find it interesting that these bears, almost none of them understand AI. And I don't mean like deeply understand it. They don't understand the basics of how Tesla's using AI. And yet they, at the same time, can say for certain that the future of Tesla doesn't look good. And those 2 things conflict, but it's so many. It's Gary Black. It's the FUD guy we had in here the other day. It's what's his name? Gordon Johnson said it the other day. He said he doesn't understand AI, but Tesla doesn't use AI for full self-driving, he said, but yet he doesn't understand it.
Yeah, he said FSD is not AI. He literally said FSD is not AI.
Right, and the guys in here were trying to help him, and it's like, oh, those are just words. Well, yeah, those are the words needed to understand this stuff. It's just, I don't know, it really bugs me. I think maybe we should have some kind of like real basic AI test. If you're going to be a bear in here, you know, you got to be able to at least explain how the AI works for Tesla to be able to say it's not good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, so here's why I don't want to do that. Is because the couple of people that you mentioned, they actually represent most of the market participants. And by market participants, I mean bulls, bears, longs, shorts, or even the people who stay on the sidelines, or even the people that Gregor Truck just mentioned. You know, they had never even heard of the Cybertruck. So I want a comprehensive representative crowd in this space on the board. We have basic rules, but if people, I think we have a good set of rules now. Solid. I'm going to publish an article at some point with those rules. That if people abide by it, and most people do, then we have a really good, respectful, fruitful discussion that actually represents the market, not just, you know, a small, you know, group of people that either invest or just short sell, etc. That's why I don't want to do it. But that's going to, you know, that's, you know, sometimes we will have, so I'm trying to coordinate a very specific, in-depth discussion of FSD AI. But generally speaking, I want to represent the crowd. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's more lively when we get competing views and stuff. It gets to the point of dishonesty, though. That's where it bugs me. I can't tell if some of these people are just engagement farming or what the real agenda is to make really bold claims.
So I've been around Tesla chatter for about, you know, getting close to 10 years now. So I know which accounts have said what in the past, at what period, etc. I can pretty much gauge if somebody's just a troll. You know, I don't accept those folks. But you know, we do have bears in the space that do bet against the company. So there's also a difference between, you know, investors who may be, you know, concerned about certain things, but they still invest in the company. That's not a bear. You know what I mean? That's not necessarily
right.
But we also want people who put their money where their mouth is when they bet against the company, and we want to hear from them as well. You know.
Yeah, I do too.
Bradford, go ahead.
Yeah, so I totally agree that there are a lot of people that don't know about Cybertruck. I don't know. I feel like the bears who won't even try FSD, they deserve whatever's coming to them. Whatever harm is going to come over them financially, divorce, job loss, losing their houses. I know there was someone who shorted Tesla in 2020 who lost a house and got divorced. It's extremely ignorant to be shorting a company and just be unwilling to even try the technology when it's free to try. And it does blow my mind that like somehow like people are under a rock, they don't know what a Cybertruck is. But I have a family member who is a infectious disease doctor. He has a higher IQ than me. He didn't even know what a Cybertruck was this past August, and like I showed him a picture of it, and he said he had never seen it before. So like even though that video went viral on the launch day in 2019, there's a lot of people who didn't see it, didn't know anything about it, and it was never on like the front of Tesla's homepage or anything, so people don't know about it. And
yeah,
I purposely put Tesla on my Cybertruck, so I have little decals that say the word Tesla on it, so people know that it at least is a Tesla.
Okay, good. Wessex, does that make sense? We want to have a diverse group in this board, in this space.
For sure, I think that'll really help. I don't want an echo chamber, but I've been
Yeah,
investing.
but the problem is people like they go like we want to hear a bull bear debate, and then I bring the bears, and then bears open their mouth, and then I get yelled at for letting us speak. I'm like, do you want the debate or not? Like, you need to decide whether you are for free speech or not. Okay, and again, people who invest in the company that disagree with the super optimistic forecasts are not bears. They're not the bears. Okay, they're still investing. They're still bulls.
Yeah, right on. I started investing in Tesla in 2017, and for 3 years, it was the FUDs were basically controlling the narrative, and it was a brutal. Every day was a brutal fight, if you will, on whatever platform we were debating and arguing, and that ended in 2020. And just recently, it's kind of coming back, it seems. And what I consider someone that's kind of a fudster, if you will, is somebody that really doesn't know what they're talking about, but they're just saying a bunch of negative things, but there's nothing to back it up. But anyways, back to your point, yeah, I definitely want these people on the platform and discussing this stuff with us in this forum. I think that is helpful.
Okay, good. And obviously, it's not going to be perfect. I'll make mistakes every now and then, but I think overall the space is moving in the right direction, and we're growing together.
You do a great job managing everybody. Yeah, no, it's important because I think with the whole debate thing with bears and bulls, that can get real ugly real fast. And I think the way you do it really can help get deeper in the conversation. Everybody seems to be pretty respectful too, because they know they're going to get kicked out if they're not. So, anyways, great job.
Thank you. All right, Bradford, what's new with you? So you're very excited about V12.3.3. We have free trials going out. Gregor Truck told us about all the excitement that he's seeing with going around in the Cybertruck. So why isn't this stock, Bradford, since this is your expertise area, why is the stock still where it is, below 200?
Well, it's starting to creep up. I think it's the people who know about it it's still very limited. It's our little secret, among 10, 50,000 of us, however many of us in the bubble on YouTube and X. There's still people who subscribe to Dave Lee, etc., Farzad, and on YouTube who probably are skeptical of V12. There's some people who feel it doesn't work well in their area. Maybe it doesn't drive like the way they want, but I think a great test of self-driving is trying it out in a city you don't live in and in an area that you've never driven in and seeing how it does in that area. And even before I did the coast to coast trip, I tried out V12 or I tried out like V11 in Austin, and it did really well in Austin, and I felt comfortable using it then. And it just like, I think that's like the way to think about it, where we have a very specific way we drive our car in our commutes, how we drive it to the store, what exactly we do. We have our patterns, and I think people can be a little hypercritical and miss it. So I think like there's just different ways that people think about it. There's different groups of people, and you could call that information systems, where it's just different ways of thoughts, different groups of people. So I think it's this. I think we're privy to a secret, and it's gonna develop more slowly than we think, as far as people realizing it. But it'll
Yeah, that's a great point. AI driver said the same thing about a couple of years ago, about a year ago actually. He said, you really get to feel the difference of how useful FSD is when you take it out of your comfort zone and you go to a new city and you're not familiar with the roads, and FSD just knows which lane to take, etc. And I feel the same way when I test it here in Austin. I don't drive much, but I have a couple of friends here who allow me to use their Teslas to test FSD with every version. And I take it out, put it through its paces, and I like exactly like you said, it just knows. I mean, Texas highways can get extremely complicated, very complex, and you can miss it really easily. We're talking like 5, 6, 7 layers of highways on top of each other. But FSD just knows. So I can definitely see how in a new area, as you do across the country road ride and everything, it can get really useful. That's a great point. Let's switch to Q1 earnings, Bradford. So obviously you follow the company's financial statements very closely. And now we have the production delivery figures. James Katz put out a note and said negative free cash flow possible in Q1. What are your thoughts on that? And also bottom line earnings. What do you think is the probability of a negative print, negative EPS in Q1?
Except for like obvious one-time items like them increasing their legal, I forget what it's called, their legal provisions for the legal fee that might be assigned to them. We don't think a negative number is possible. I think we're below 50 cents. I think Matt might be at like 48 cents. I'd have to double check with him. I could see how free cash flow is negative, but Matt ran it and he was really struggling to come up with how that actually works when you run all the numbers. So that's where we're at, is like
Got it. So
positive cash flow.
if Matt wants to come up anytime to the speaker board, and then maybe I could
right now.
Yeah, if he's available. If not, we can always do it tomorrow. The space available daily because of all the patrons that sign up, support the space. The link is at the top of our screens. This space is open and free for everybody. I don't block anybody. So that anybody can join and listen. Coming up to speaker board is a different story. I think there's some rules and kind of things I look for, but generally speaking, people are free to request to speak, reply to the space with their questions. I monitor the replies. We also have YouTube Live going on at the same time, live streaming. There's a live chat going on over there too, if you want to interact. And then, usually people, as Bradford pings Matt, usually people in the space reply to each other as well. They answer each other's questions. So we have a good community, I think, growing. But everybody is free. It's free and open for everybody. So that's because of the patrons, because of the moderators in YouTube Live. Without them, there's no way this space would be open daily for so many hours. So thank you very much to all of them. All right, Bradford, did you get a chance to ping him?
Yeah, he's saying he's with family now.
Yeah, that's what I figured. That's okay. I mean, he can come
tomorrow.
Will do
that. He's got 6 kids.
Exactly enough for all of us.
I got a question for Wes. I mean, or for you. I guess Gregor Truck's gone. I was going to ask him. Should I wrap the Cybertruck?
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
What would you wrap it in, Wes?
I've got one coming, and I'm going to wrap it in matte black. Or some form of black that's not shiny.
Yeah, Austin has a lot of Cybertrucks, and I'm downtown Austin, and I see multiple a day. And I see different wraps now too. They look so nice. And the ones without wraps, just, I think they look nice too, but you obviously don't get the benefits of the wraps. So I do recommend doing that, yeah.
Hey, Bradford, are the fingerprints bugging you, or is that no big deal to you?
It doesn't bother me. More fingerprints the better. That means people are coming up and we're opening doors and checking things out.
Are you getting any referrals through this? I remember you were printing some papers to kind of hand out as far as information goes. Thought you had a referral code on it, but if that's the case, are you getting any?
I'm just starting to get into that more, so I'm getting a couple out a day. So we'll see how it goes. I could use some sales tips from a global head of sales and recruiting.
Right on, man. You need to come over and pick me up again. Why don't you bring the Cybertruck through here?
All right,
There you
sounds
go.
good.
That sounds like a good trade to me. Yeah, Wessex is not only a global sales executive, but he is the Guinness record book record holder of sales of a multinational company, right? Right, Wessex?
Yeah, for all years that they've been recording that, everyone.
Yeah. All right. Any questions for Bradford or Wessex? Please request to speak. We have great talent on the board right now. This space has been going on for 3 hours. We can continue tomorrow. If not, this is probably a good place to stop it then. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Great time. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Take care.